Hello, and welcome to today's stream, where we'll be continuing our analysis of The Nature of Personal Reality, a Seth book by Jane Roberts. So as always, if you're watching when this is not live, you may fast forward until 5 minutes in, where we will begin with the main part of the material, while in the meantime I set up the stream. How do we sound? How do we sound? How do we sound? We sound good. Okay. I'm going to charge my cellular device. Okay, the tweet looks good. Basically good to go here. We will officially begin in 2 minutes. Yet again, as I'm doing this stream, I am very exhausted due to my always anomalous sleep schedule. So maybe studying the Seth material some more can help me find a way to shift my beliefs about that and improve that area of my life. We shall see. Coming to you on a very cold, but not quite as cold, Monday afternoon here, 2:17 p.m. Eastern Time. The ground outside is completely covered in snow, but it is also currently sunny. And I'm going to force myself to stay awake for the stream because I want to do my live stream. I don't care what it costs. I don't care how tired I am. I'm doing the stream. I can nap when I'm done if I have to. And perhaps also later today, or tonight I should say, after I take said nap, perhaps I'll come back and do some live tarot readings for donations of any amount. I must be honest, Within Temptation's new album is only a few days from coming out, and I'd love to be able to make enough money to make myself feel comfortable enough to buy it now rather than later. So we'll see what happens there. Okay, I see we are now about 5 minutes in, so let us begin. So, again, I am Poetic Heretic, and today we are continuing our series, reading, studying, analyzing The Nature of Personal Reality, a Seth book by Jane Roberts. And so most of the time, if you're new to this, I will be just reading the material. Some of the time I'll comment on it. I'll also take any comments or questions that pop up in the chat on it. Sometimes we get them, sometimes we don't. So we'll just have to see. I also want to remind people that that just because I am reading a book on stream, just because I'm analyzing a book on stream, does not necessarily mean I agree with every little last thing in it. However, as far as the Seth material goes at this point, I would say I do agree with probably 99% of it. But when or if ever something comes up that I don't agree with, I will indeed be sure to say so. Be sure to say what it is. And just to reiterate one more time, this is not, actually, I've never really said this in these terms before, but it bears saying, or it should be said. These streams are not intended at all to be just my sitting here reading the whole time for people to listen. This is intended to be an analysis of the material, even if a lot of the times, particularly with Seth, what he says is just so great as it is, I kind of don't very often feel the need to chime in, and then other times maybe I will for a little while. It kind of often happens in bursts, but just keep that in mind here. If you're expecting this to just be some plain reading of the book, which nothing wrong with that, but if you're expecting it to be just my sitting here reading the whole time and not stopping to analyze things, then you're watching the wrong stream, or you should revise your expectations. That's not what this is about. And ideally, even, this is an interactive experience, but of course that's going to depend on who ends up watching when I happen to go live and do these sorts of things. I know that like most of the subjects that I study, and I guess you could maybe say teach or whatever, that I at least talk about, are not the most popular subjects in the world, and that's why I'm the one teaching them and talking about them, and not, I don't know, Mr. Mainstream YouTuber, down the street or in the next town or state or whatever. So, with all that said, let us begin. Let's resume with chapter 2. Indeed, I just have the digital version of the book, not the physical copy this time, but that is all we really need. So, chapter 2, Reality and Personal Beliefs. Session 614, September 13th, 1972, 9:36 p.m., Wednesday. Jane was very pleased now that Seth's book was firmly underway after so many delays. Her energy has been up these days. After her long session Monday night, she had come back with an even longer one in ESP class Tuesday evening, and with Sumari added too. Footnote: see Jane's introduction for material on the development of her Sumari abilities. End of footnote. Now a third session was due tonight. She wasn't tired though, Jane said. Her only complaint concerned the excessive humidity, since she is very sensitive to the weather. Today had been hot, with rain after supper. We walked around the block just before session time. Good evening, Seth. We will resume dictation. Chapter 2, Reality and Personal Beliefs. You form the fabric of your experience through your own beliefs and expectations. These personal ideas about yourself and the nature of reality will affect your thoughts and emotions. You take your beliefs about reality as truth and often do not question them. They seem self-explanatory. They appear in your mind as statements of fact, far too obvious for examination. Therefore, they are accepted without question too often. They are not recognized as beliefs about reality, but are instead considered characteristics of reality itself. Pause. Frequently such ideas appear indisputable, so a part of you that it does not occur to you to speculate about their validity. They become invisible assumptions, but they nevertheless color and form your personal experience. Some people, for example, do not question their religious beliefs, but accept them as fact. Others find it comparatively easy to recognize such inner assumptions when they appear in a religious context, but are quite blind to them in other areas. 945. It is far simpler to recognize your own beliefs in regard to religion, politics, or similar subjects than it is to pinpoint your deepest beliefs about yourself and who and what you are, particularly in relationship with your own life. Many individuals are completely blind to their own beliefs about themselves and the nature of reality. Your own conscious thoughts will give you excellent clues. Often you will find yourself refusing to accept certain thoughts that come to your mind because they conflict with other usually accepted ideas. Your conscious mind is always trying to give you a clear picture, but you often allow preconceived ideas to block out this intelligence. It has been fashionable to blame the subconscious for personality problems and difficulties, the idea being that early events, charged and mysterious, lodged there. In this country, several generations grew up believing that the subconscious portions of the personality were unreliable, filled with negative energy, and contained only locked up unpleasant episodes best forgotten. 954. They grew up believing that the conscious mind was relatively powerless, that adult experience was set in the days of infancy. These concepts themselves set up artificial divisions. People learned that they should not be aware of quote-unquote subconscious material. The doors to the inner self were to be shut tight. Only lengthy psychoanalysis could or should open them. The normal individual felt that he had best leave such areas alone. So in cutting off these portions of the self, barriers were also set up against the joy of the inner spontaneous self. People felt divorced from the core of their own reality. The concept of original sin was a very poor, limited, and distorted one, but at least along with it went rather simple procedures. Through baptism you might be saved, or through certain words or sacraments or ritual, redemption could be found. Parentheses, see the Gospel according to Mark 1:1-11, for instance. The idea of the tainted subconscious, however, left man no such relatively easy way out. The few rituals possible required years of analysis, which only the very wealthy were privileged to experience. About the same time that the idea of the unsavory subconscious arose so strongly, the idea of the soul went out the window. Millions of people therefore believed in a reality in which they were deprived of the idea of a soul, and burdened by the concept of a very unreliable, if not definitely evil, subconscious. They saw themselves as vulnerable solitary points of egos, riding perilously and unprotected upon the tumultuous waves of involuntary processes. Pause at 10:05. Certainly these sessions aren't quote-unquote spiritual in usual terms. Still in trance, Jane lit a cigarette. Her beer was gone, but since I had a little left in my glass, she reached over and helped herself. Footnote. Jane leaned on Jane learned on her own some time ago that a very moderate amount of alcohol goes well with the sessions. So does tobacco. Subsequent reading informed us that both substances depress the central nervous system. We think Jane combines the resulting spontaneity with her natural psychic abilities in these sessions. She doesn't begin tasting any beverage, however, until the session is underway. End of footnote. At about the same time, many intelligent persons were realizing that organized religion's ideas of God and of heaven and hell were distorted, unjust, and smacked of children's fairy tales. For these individuals, there was no place to look for help. Under the circumstances, to look within would have seemed foolhardy, for they had been taught that this within contained the source of their problems to begin with. Those who could not afford therapy tried the harder to inhibit any messages from the inner self, for fear they would become swallowed by the savage infantile emotions. Now, first of all, there are no limitations or divisions to the self, though for purposes of discussion, a word like ego may be used here because you understand what you think it means. You can indeed depend upon seemingly unconscious portions of yourself. As you will see later, you can become more and more consciously aware, therefore, bringing into your consciousness larger and larger portions of yourself. 10:12. You breathe, grow, and perform multitudinous, delicate, and precise activities constantly, without being consciously aware of how you carry out such manipulations. You live without consciously knowing how you maintain this miracle of physical awareness in the world of flesh and time. The seemingly unconscious portions of yourself draw atoms and molecules from the air to form your image. Your lips move, your tongue speaks your name. Does the name belong to the atoms and molecules within your lips and tongue? Pause. The atoms and molecules move constantly, forming into cells, tissues, and organs. How can the name the tongue speaks belong to them? They do not read or write, yet they speak complicated syllables that communicate to other beings, such as yourself, anything from a simple feeling to the most complicated information. How do they do this? The atoms and molecules of the tongue do not know the syntax of the language they speak. When you begin a sentence, you do not have the slightest conscious idea, often, of how you will finish it. Yet you take it on faith that the words will make sense and your meaning will flow out effortlessly. All of this happens because the inner portions of your being operate spontaneously, joyfully, freely. All of this occurs because your inner self believes in you, often even while you do not believe in it. These unconscious portions of your being operate amazingly well, frequently despite the greatest misunderstanding on your part of their nature and function, and in the face of strong interference from you because of your beliefs. Each person experiences a unique reality, different from any other individual's. This reality springs outward from the inner landscape of thoughts, feelings, expectations, and beliefs. If you believe that the inner self works against you rather than for you, then you hamper its functioning, or rather, you force it to behave in a certain way because of your beliefs. The conscious mind is meant to make clear judgments about your position in physical reality. Often false beliefs will prevent it from making these, for the egotistically held ideas will cloud its clear vision. I suggest a break. 10:31. Jane's trance had been deep. She felt better now, she said, because the weather had lost some of its oppressive quality. I told her that in my opinion the material tonight represented her and Seth at their best, and that it also had a deceptive simplicity. Jane was pleased, saying she felt quite free now about the production of the book. Are you ready? Quote unquote, yes. I was just finishing my notes when Jane took off her glasses and resumed speaking for Seth. 10:53. Your beliefs can be like fences that surround you. You must first recognize the existence of such barriers. You must see them, or you will not even realize that you are not free, simply because you will not see beyond the fences. Very positively, they will represent the boundaries of your experience. There is one belief, however, that destroys artificial barriers to perception, an expanding belief that automatically pierces false and inhibiting ideas. Now, separately, underlined, the self is not limited. That statement is a statement of fact. It exists regardless of your belief or disbelief in it. Following this concept is another. There are no boundaries or separations of the self. Those that you experience are the result of false beliefs. Following this is the idea that I have already mentioned. You make your own reality. To understand yourself and what you are, you can learn to experience yourself directly apart from your beliefs about yourself. What I would like each reader to do is to sit quietly, close your eyes, try to sense within yourself the deep feeling tones that I mentioned earlier in the 613th session in Chapter 1. This is not difficult to do. Your knowledge of their existence will help you recognize their deep rhythms within you. Each individual will sense these tones in his or her own way, so do not worry about how they should feel. Simply tell yourself that they exist, that they are composed of the great energies of your being made flesh. Then let yourself experience. If you are used to terms like meditation, try to forget the term during this procedure. Do not use any name. Free yourself from concepts and experience the being of yourself in the motion of your own vitality. Do not question, is this right? Am I doing it correctly? Am I feeling what I should feel? This is the book's first exercise for you. You are not to use other people's criteria. There are no standards but your own feelings. No particular time limit is recommended. This should be an enjoyable experience. Accept whatever happens as uniquely your own. The exercise will put you in touch with yourself. It will return you to yourself. When you are nervous or upset, or whenever you are nervous or upset, take a few moments to sense this feeling tone within you, and you will find yourself centered in your own being, secure. When you have tried this exercise several times, then feel these deep rhythms go out from you in all directions, as indeed they do. Electromagnetically, they radiate out through your physical being, and in ways that I hope to explain later, they form the environment that you know even as they form your physical image. 11:14. I told you that the self was not limited, yet surely you think that your self stops where your skin meets space, that you are inside your skin, period. Yet your environment is an extension of yourself. It is the body of your experience, coalesced in physical form. The inner self forms the objects that you know as surely and automatically as it forms your finger or your eye. Your environment is the physical picture of your thoughts, emotions, and beliefs made visible. Since your thoughts, emotions, and beliefs move through space and time, you therefore affect physical conditions separate from you. Consider the spectacular framework of your body just from the physical standpoint. You perceive it as solid, as you perceive all other physical matter. Yet the more matter is explored, the more obvious it becomes that within it energy takes on specific shape, parentheses, in the form of organs, cells, molecules, atoms, electrons, each less physical than the last, each combining in mysterious gestalt to form matter. 11:25. The atoms within your body spin. There is constant commotion and activity. The flesh that seemed so solid turns out to be composed of swiftly moving particles, often orbiting each other, in which great exchanges of energy continually occur. The stuff, the space outside of your body, is composed of the same elements, but in different proportions. There is a constant physical interchange between the structure you call your body and the space outside it, chemical interactions, basic exchanges without which life as you know it would be impossible. To hold your breath is to die. Breath, which represents the most intimate and most necessary of your physical sensations, must flow out from what you are, passing into the world that seems to be not you. Physically, portions of you leave your body constantly and intermix with the elements. You know what happens when adrenaline is released through the bloodstream. It stirs you up and prepares you for action. But in other ways, the adrenaline does not just stay in your body. It is cast into the air and it affects the atmosphere, though it is transformed. Any of your emotions liberate hormones, but these also leave you as your breath leaves you. And in that respect, you can say that you release chemicals into the air that then affect it. Physical storms, then, are caused by such interactions. I am telling you that you form your own reality once again, and this includes the physical weather, which is the result en masse of your individual reactions. I will elaborate much more specifically on this particular point later in the book. Parentheses, a note added later, Seth does in chapter 18. You are in physical existence to learn and understand that your energy, translated into feelings, thoughts, and emotions, causes all experience. There are no exceptions. Once you understand this, you have only to learn to examine the nature of your beliefs, for these will automatically cause you to feel and think in certain fashions. Your emotions follow your beliefs. It is not the other way around. I would like you to recognize your own beliefs in several areas. You must realize that any idea you accept as truth is a belief that you hold. You must then take the next step and say, it is not necessarily true, even though I believe it. You will, I hope, learn to disregard all beliefs that imply basic limitations. You may take your break. And so let me take a moment here to comment on this and say that last paragraph is probably one of the most important paragraphs that we're going to read today. So what I would recommend is, especially whenever you're encountering a negative belief, which means a limiting belief in nature, and we'll get more into what those are as we go. But when you're dealing with an unwanted reality, and what you want to say is, oh, it's true, therefore I believe it, what you really must realize is that you believe it, therefore it's true. So you want to say to yourself, I believe it, therefore it's true. Now there are exceptions to this. There are, I believe, objective truths in the universe. Don't use this idea to avoid reality, objective realities. That's a whole nother thing. We're talking about your personal life. Like a good example would be if you believe that you are unworthy of success, that's a negative belief. And you have to realize that that only seems to be true because you believe it. It is not actually literally 100% true. It's just a belief. And so when Seth says, you must realize that any idea you accept as truth is a belief that you hold. You must then take the next step and say, it is not necessarily true, even though I believe it. Really pay attention to that. So when you're coming up against a negative belief and you're trying to improve a certain area of your life, perhaps, and you're like, okay, I have this negative belief, that sentence right there where he says, you must then take the next step and say, it is not necessarily true, even though I believe it, that's what you want to do. So a big challenge people have, so many people, is with the subject of money. They'll say, oh, well, I'm poor, therefore I believe I don't have a lot of money. Well, now this is admittedly one of the most challenging subjects of all for so many people, but nevertheless, the reality is you only have a lack of money because you believe in that. And so it's really a mind game. You have to convince yourself that your beliefs form the reality. That's the trick. Is it easy? No, it often is not. But can it be easy in some areas? Yes. Can it be accomplished in areas where it isn't easy? Yes, it can be accomplished. You can see very real improvements. I've done it myself. I am speaking from experience. Now, is this like some panacea that's going to make your life amazing forevermore? Well, only if you're really good at it. But can it go a long way to helping you? Yes, it absolutely can. And we'll get into more of how to sort of take on new positive beliefs and release old negative beliefs as we go. And I can just tell you as a little preview, it largely has to do with, first of all, an analysis of your own beliefs, figuring out why you believe them, and also self-hypnotism. And I know people will say, well, hypnotism can be a dangerous thing. Well, it can, but it can also be used in a very positive way. And so we'll get into that. Yeah, indeed. Like I've used this stuff in my own life, and I've seen many improvements. You can change your beliefs, and you can change your reality as a result. And yes, there will always be challenges, and there's supposed to be, but this is one of the best ways to recreate your life as you see fit. So let us resume. 11:40. Jane was surprised to learn that almost 50 minutes had passed. Her delivery had become increasingly energetic and intent, and the session had turned into one of those occasions when she, and Seth, appeared to be quite capable of continuing half the night. I'd also picked up an infusion of energy. Because I was willing to continue, Jane changed her mind about ending the session here. Resume in the same manner at 11:56. Now, later we will discuss some of the reasons for your beliefs, but for now I simply want you to recognize them. I am going to list some limiting false beliefs. If you find yourself agreeing with any of them, then recognize this as an area in which you must personally work. 1. Life is a valley of sorrows. 2. The body is inferior. As a vehicle of the soul, it is automatically degraded, tinged. You may feel that the flesh is inherently bad or evil, that its appetites are wrong. Christians may find the body deplorable, thinking that the soul descended into it. Quote-unquote descent, automatically meaning the change from a higher or better condition to one that is worse. Followers of Eastern religions often feel it their duty also to deny the flesh, to rise above it, so to speak, into a state where nothing is desired. Parentheses, quote-unquote emptiness in Taoism, for instance. Using a different vocabulary, they still believe that earth experience is not desirable in itself. 3. I am helpless before circumstances that I cannot control. 4. I am helpless because my personality and character were formed in infancy, and I am at the mercy of my past. 5. I am helpless because I am at the mercy of events from past lives in other incarnations, over which I now have no control. I must be punished, or I am punishing myself, for these unkindnesses done to others in past lives. I must accept the negative aspects of my life because of my karma. Footnote. In Hinduism and Buddhism, karma is thought of as the total moral sum of an individual's acts in any one life, thus determining the person's fate or destiny in the next. Seth sees reincarnational lives as all existing at once, so there is constant give and take among them. A quote-unquote future life, then, can affect a quote-unquote past one, so karma, as it is usually considered, does not apply. So some excessive karmic adherents out there can put that in their pipes and smoke it. 6. People are basically bad and out to get me. 7. I have the truth and no one else has, or my group has the truth and no other group has. 8. I will grow frailer, sicker, and lose my powers as I grow old. 9. My existence is dependent upon my experience in flesh. When my body dies, my consciousness dies with it. Now, that was a rather general list of false beliefs. Now here is a more specific list of more intimate beliefs, any of which you may have personally about yourself. 1. I am sickly and always have been. 2. There is something wrong with money. People who have it are greedy, less spiritual than those who are poor. They are unhappier and snobs. 3. I am not creative. I have no imagination. Next. I can never do what I want to do. Next. People dislike me. Next. I am fat. Parentheses, that would be number 6. Then 7. I always have bad luck. 12:15. These are all beliefs held by many people. Those who have them will meet them in experience. Physical data will always seem to reinforce the beliefs, therefore, but the beliefs formed the reality. We are going to attempt to knock down such limiting concepts. First of all, you must realize that no one can change your beliefs for you, nor can they be forced upon you from without. You can indeed change them for yourself, however, with knowledge and application. Look about you. Your entire physical environment is the materialization of your beliefs. Your sense of joy, sorrow, health, or illness, all of these are also caused by your beliefs. If you believe that a given situation should make you unhappy, then it will, and the unhappiness will then reinforce the condition. Within you is the ability to change your ideas about reality and about yourself, to create a personal living experience that is fulfilling to yourself and others. I would like you to write down your beliefs about yourself as you become aware of them. Later, you can use this list in a way that you do not now suspect. Break or end of session, whatever you prefer. Parentheses, quote, well, I guess we'd better end it then. End at 12:25 a.m. Both of us felt much better now than we had before the session began. All right, so that concludes that session. So let me think if I have any comments on this real quick. Any additional comments? I know I was going to say something about this. I think it was something about, I was going to make a point more or less about how the answer also is not to just come up with a whole bunch of new positive beliefs that you're going to then try to implant in yourself to sort of overwrite the old negative beliefs. That will just set up artificial divisions within yourself, because that is a form of resistance to the negative beliefs. And what do we know about resistance? What we resist persists, as Carl Jung said. So what we have to do instead, and Seth does indeed get into this, he gets deep into it, as he does with pretty much everything, is we have to understand why we came to believe the negative beliefs in the first place. We have to analyze them, critique them. We have to get to the underlying structure of the negative beliefs and really see them for what they are. And then once we understand why we chose to buy into them in the first place, then we can naturally shift them to a positive belief. We can begin to release them and then replace them the right way with positive beliefs. You see, it's tricky when dealing with stuff like this, because the ego has such a strong desire to be good and to do good, and so it's like, ooh, positive means I'm good, negative means I'm bad, and the ego basically equates being good with survival. So we have to sort of overcome that hurdle as well, and we have to realize that what we are calling negative beliefs, well, we could say deserve love too. They deserve our loving attention as well. Like, just because you have a negative belief doesn't make you bad. If that was true, everyone on this planet would be very, very bad. And most people would be extremely bad, because most people have probably, I don't know, thousands of negative beliefs, if you can believe that. So what we in fact have to do is realize, first of all, again, that it's okay to have negative beliefs. In fact, we sort of opted into that. Resistance is a part of physical reality. It's okay to have these negative beliefs. Like, who doesn't have negative beliefs? And then we start to understand them, give them some loving attention, and then naturally dismantle them, and then replace them with positive beliefs. And I was also going to make the point that the problem that we often run into is, again, because the ego has such a desire to be good and will want to see negative beliefs as bad, that people will use this as, they'll use the implanting of positive beliefs as sort of a means of spiritual bypassing, and as a means of escaping themselves and setting up divisions, artificial divisions, and very unhealthy divisions within themselves. Like, people will try to use this stuff that can be very, very good for you in fairly destructive ways. And what's even more insidious about it is that it can at first appear to be very good, and they can have great success for a while, but they haven't actually done anything with those negative beliefs other than like try to shove them into the back of their mind. They haven't actually released their resistance. They have merely suppressed their resistance. And suppression is a form of resistance. They're in fact resisting their resistance, and what we resist persists, including our own resistance. And let me tell you, that's not the answer. And Seth gets deep into that in this book as well, to try to, set people on the right path, basically, or at least help people avoid disaster. He gives a very interesting example down the road, like a case of this, basically, and we'll get into that when we get there. But yeah, that's my warning right now. Don't use the implanting of positive beliefs to resist negative beliefs. Understand the negative beliefs, understand them, love them, and then allow them to naturally release, and then gradually implant the positive beliefs is what you want to do, basically speaking. So I'm just going to take a little breather, and then we will continue. Phone's charging very nicely. All right, that's good. Huh, that's very weird. Someone disliked uploaded and published. I made it unlisted. Well, how the fuck did they even find it then? Huh, weird. Well, why the hell would they dislike it? I was just sitting there waiting for people to I don't know. With some people, it's like, what do they think this is? When I do as long as we're on a little break here, let me explain something to people. When I do a live tarot reading for a donation stream, I'm not doing that to, I don't know, be entertaining or whatever. I'm doing that to give people tarot readings. That's kind of the point, which should be obvious from the title. So I don't know. I don't know what issue some people have with these sorts of things, but whatever. I guess without knowing the actual issue, because such people almost never leave comments letting me know what their issue is, then I can't address it. So that's unfortunate, but whatever. You can dislike it all you want. That's just gonna make me want to do it even more. So. Though sometimes I wonder, maybe see, I'm not really sure. I'm not sure what typically goes through the mind of a disliker, but having done YouTube for so many years, it's something I've often wondered about. Like, should I take it as a more like almost sinister thing, or are they trying to provide like legitimate, sincere, honest feedback? Like, I really can't tell. Because if they're just going to dislike a video, especially one that's already been made unlisted, like, seriously, what's even the point once it's unlisted? But anyway, but if they're going to dislike something and not leave a comment, like with constructive criticism, then how is that sincere? How is that how is that trying to be helpful? Unless they're trying to warn other people, saying like, oh, my videos are so bad. Well, I guess if you want to conclude that, that's in the eye of the beholder, as they say. That's other people's opinion. I can't really change that. If people are going to think my videos suck, then that's just going to have to be their opinion. Then I guess in some people's realities, my videos suck, whatever, or streams, or whatever it is. But anyway, that's just, I don't know, it's just so weird. Like, after I made it unlisted, it got a dislike. Like, what the hell? Like, normally I don't really care if it's like something public, but after I made it unlisted, well, who the hell's watching it when it's unlisted and then disliking it? Like, why the hell? Why? Whatever. Because it'd have to be someone who, like, I don't know. I'm not sure how it works with YouTube, but it would probably have to be someone who got like a notification for it at least. But then again, YouTube will often notify. I think YouTube notifies people when someone goes live without the person necessarily being signed up for notifications. So whatever. I just wish people would tell me, like, if they're going to offer some kind of disapproval or disliking of what I am doing, I wish they would tell me why. I wish they would tell me what they dislike. Give me some constructive criticism, so then hopefully I can do better in the future, rather than just disliking my video or stream and then saying nothing about it and there's nothing I can do. It's like, okay, well, what part of it do I need to improve on? But anyway, yeah, this is part of my spiritual practice. When I feel something, I say what it is, because my spiritual practice is authenticity. I'm not just going to sit here and pretend to be in a positive vibration while I'm, reading this book on changing your beliefs and whatnot, when the reality is that I'm not. Yes, like, stuff like that does bother me, and I'm going to talk about it when it happens. I'm feeling a little bit better now, though, now that I've talked about it. But anyway, yeah, it's like, please, freaking, like, if you want to criticize what I'm doing, actually voice your criticism. Like, tell me what I'm doing wrong, or what you think I could do better on, or whatever. Otherwise, there's nothing I can do with it, and it's not constructive at all. So anyway, session 615, September 18th, 1972, 9:32 p.m. Monday. Jane has already had one session, a short one, today. The mail had brought us good news early this afternoon. We'd celebrated with a drink, then Seth had come through. While we were eating supper this evening, Jane received a long-distance call from one of our visitors of last August. Regretfully, she had to tell him she'd had little time to work on the scientific projects discussed then, although she was still interested. While she was doing the dishes and thinking about this, she received an amusing flash from Seth. She was to stop worrying about such things and adopt a position of divine nonchalance. That was in quotes. Adopt a position of divine nonchalance. Maybe that's what I need to do. Jane was quite ready for her regular session at 9 o'clock, although because of the call we weren't sure what it would cover. By 9:30, however, the session still hadn't started, and she was impatient. Yet when she did take off her glasses and begin speaking for Seth, her voice was quiet, her pace leisurely, her eyes closed often. Now, dictation. Good evening, Seth. Your conscious beliefs direct the functioning of your body. It is not the other way around. Your inner self adopts the physically conscious, physically focused mind as a method of allowing it to manipulate in the world that you know. The conscious mind is particularly equipped to direct outward activity, to handle waking experience and oversee physical work. Its beliefs about the nature of reality are then given to inner portions of the self. These rely mainly upon the conscious mind's interpretation of temporal reality. The conscious mind sets the goals and the inner self brings them about, using all its facilities and inexhaustible energy. The great value of the conscious mind lies precisely in its ability to make decisions and set directions. Its role is dual, however. It is meant to assess conditions both inside and outside, to handle data that comes from the physical world and from the inner portions of the self. It is not a closed system, then. To be human necessitates fine discrimination and the use of such consciousness. Many people are afraid of their own thoughts. They do not examine them. They accept the beliefs of others. Such actions distort data from both within and without. There is no battle between the intuitive self and the conscious mind. There only seems to be when the individual refuses to face all the information that is available in his conscious mind. Pause. Sometimes it seems easier to avoid the frequent readjustments in behavior that self-examination requires. In such cases, an individual collects many secondhand beliefs. Some contradict each other. The signals given to the body and to the inner self are not smoothly flowing or clear-cut, but a muddied jumble of counter-directions. These will immediately set off alarms of various natures. The body will not function properly, or the overall emotional environment will suffer. Such reactions are actually excellent precautions, meant to be taken as a sign that change is needed. At the same time, the inner self will transmit to the conscious mind insights and intuitions meant to clear its sight. But if you believe that the inner self is dangerous and not to be trusted, if you are afraid of dreams or any intrusive psychic material, then you deny this help and turn aside from it. 950. If you believe, moreover, that you must accept your difficulties, then this belief alone can deter you from solving them. I repeat, your ideas and beliefs form the structure of your experience. Your beliefs and the reasons for them can be found in your conscious mind. If you accept the idea that the reasons for your behavior are forever buried in the past of this life or any other, then you will not be able to alter your experience until you change that belief. I am speaking now of more or less normal experience. Later we will discuss more particular areas, such as circumstances in which illnesses date from birth. The realization that you form your own reality should be a liberating one. You are responsible for your successes and your joys. You can change those areas of your life with which you are less than pleased, but you must take the responsibility for your being. Your spirit joined itself with flesh, and in flesh to experience a world of incredible richness, to help create a dimension of reality, of colors, and of form. Your spirit was born in flesh to enrich a marvelous area of sense awareness, to feel energy made into corporeal form. You are here to use, enjoy, and express yourself through the body. You are here to aid in the great expansion of consciousness. You are not here to cry about the miseries of the human condition. but to change them when you find them not to your liking through the joy, strength, and vitality that is within you, to create the spirit as faithfully and beautifully as you can in flesh. The conscious mind allows you to look outward into the physical universe and see the reflection of your spiritual activity, to perceive and assess your individual and joint creations. In a manner of speaking, the conscious mind is a window through which you look outward, and looking outward, perceive the fruits of your inner mind. Often you let false beliefs blur that great vision. Your joy, vitality, and accomplishment do not come from the outside to you as the result of events that, quote unquote, happen to you. They spring from inner events that are the result of your beliefs. 10:06. Seth Jane, deep in thought, paused. Much has been written about the nature and importance of suggestion. One of the current ideas in vogue holds that you are constantly at the mercy of suggestion. Your own conscious beliefs are the most important suggestions that you receive. All other ideas are rejected or accepted according to whether or not you believe they are true, in line with the steady conscious chattering that goes on within your mind most of the day, the suggestions given to you by yourself. You will accept a suggestion given by another only if it fits in with your own ideas about the nature of reality in general, and your concepts about yourself in particular. If you use your conscious mind properly, then you examine those beliefs that come to you. You do not accept them willy-nilly. If you use your conscious mind properly, you are also aware of intuitive ideas that come to you from within. You are only half conscious when you do not examine the information that comes to you from without, and when you ignore the data that comes to you from within. 10:13. Many false beliefs, therefore, are indiscriminately accepted because you have not examined them. You have given the inner self a faulty picture of reality. Since it is the function of the conscious mind to assess physical experience, it, brackets, the inner self, hasn't been able to do its job properly. If the inner portions of the self were supposed to have that responsibility, then you would not need a conscious mind. Emphatically. When the inner self is alerted, it will immediately try to remedy the situation by an influx of self-corrective measures. On occasion, when the situation gets out of hand, it will bypass those restrictive areas of the conscious mind and solve the problem by shooting forth energy in other layers of activity. It will manage to work around the blind spots in the reasoning mind, for example. Often it will sift out from the barrage of conflicting beliefs the particular set that is the most life-giving, and send these forth in what then appears as a burst of revelation. Such revelations result in new patterns that change behavior. You must be aware of the contents of your own reasoning mind. Find the ambiguities. Regardless of the nature of your beliefs, they are indeed made flesh and material. The miracle of your being cannot escape itself. Your thoughts blossom into events. If you think the world is evil, you will meet with events that seem evil. There are no accidents in cosmic terms, or in terms of the world as you know it. Your beliefs grow as surely in time and space as flowers do. When you realize this, you can even feel they're growing. You may take a break. All right, I'm going to take a brief break here as well, just because I feel like I need it. Yeah, that dislike on that stream, I'm looking at it again. Yeah, that still bothers me. I'm not sure why. I think it's something to do with like that stream. It was so difficult to begin with because I wasn't even getting any business or clients or customers or whatever would be the word that night. I wasn't even getting any people who wanted readings that evening, and that was disappointing. And then someone goes and dislikes it. It's like, wow, thanks a lot. Way to add insult to injury. Yeah, let's see here. So since my spiritual practice is authenticity, then I'm going to sit here and I'm going to be present with this feeling and try to understand it right here live on stream, and see if I can help remedy the situation. Well, I think what really bothers me about it is, why would someone dislike that in the first place? They didn't leave a comment, so I can't know. But why dislike a stream like that in the first place? Like, were you expecting me to sit there and be entertaining while waiting for people to show up who wanted readings? Were you expecting me to give readings one way or another? Were you displeased that nothing happened in it? I mean, it was made unlisted in the first place, so the idea isn't even for it to be watched in general like that, unlike a stream like this one, basically. So I don't know. To whoever out there disliked that video, you kind of, I almost want to say, kind of hurt me. That's maybe a bit of putting it a bit too extreme, but you bothered me by doing so. So whoever you are out there, I know that you're a reflection of an aspect of me, but my message to you, my authentic truth I'm communicating to you right now, whether you end up hearing this or not, is you hurt me. You bothered me by doing that. And what really bothers me is I don't know why you did that. I don't know why you disapproved of that stream. I don't know why you disapproved of it. I don't know what it is about it that you didn't like, and I wish I did know so that I could decide for myself if I agree or disagree with it. If I agree with it, then I can improve myself. If I disagree with it, then I can be like, okay, well, that's your opinion. I don't have to feel bad about it anymore. But the nebulousness of it is what's really bothering me right now. That's what's really bothering me right now. The uncertainty of it. It's definitely unpleasant. Because then, I think it's because then I feel powerless to do anything about it, because I don't know what is wrong in the first place, or if there even is anything wrong to begin with, so it leads to a feeling of confusion. And again, as I've said, my spiritual practice is authenticity. So if anyone is watching now, I don't think I have any viewers at the moment, but if anyone is and it's just not saying, or anyone who watches this when it's not live, if you're getting frustrated with me that I'm not continuing with the Seth material and I'm sitting here talking about my feelings, well, I've got news for you. This is my spiritual practice. I would abandon the freaking Seth material completely for the entire rest of this stream and sit here for the next several hours talking about how I feel, if that is what it took to hold true to my spiritual practice of authenticity. I don't give a shit. I am here to be authentic. I am not here to play a fucking role or be your fucking puppet and just do for you whatever the hell you want me to do for you. You know, you're going to dislike my video because I'm not performing for you in the way that you want me to perform for you. Well, that's just too fucking bad, because I'm here to do what I'm here to do. Now, will I accept criticism if it's offered? Yes, I'm all for it. As I've been saying, please give me criticism if you can. If there's some way that you're aware of that I can improve myself, please give it to me, and I will indeed consider it. I want it. I like it. It's almost like a form of shadow work in a weird way, sort of, kind of. But yes, but is that what happened here? No, not at all. Or with any other situation where someone just dislikes the video or stream but doesn't leave a comment or communicate in any way, shape, or form what their issue is, why they disliked it. That's not constructive criticism at all, and yes, it goddamn bothers me. And this is what it means to be authentic. You know, cut the freaking crap. You know, a dislike on the internet bothers you, or a comment on the internet bothers you, or, you know, this bothers you or that bothers you, say that it freaking bothers you. So in a way, I'm glad this is coming up in this stream because people need to get this through their freaking heads. And I'm going to keep screaming and yelling about this until the day I fucking die, if that's what it takes to get people to listen. Say how you feel. So many of our problems come from not saying, not expressing how we really feel. And yes, I'm mad as hell about so many things. And yes, funny enough, Seth talks about this. So this is strangely appropriate. Seth talks about how as much as we want to, be positive and have positive beliefs, if we feel anger or sadness or whatever, we need to communicate that. That the desire to communicate it is there to help things stay in order, basically. And when you suppress that, when you hold that in, we got into this in the appendix of Seth Speaks. Go back and check out that stream. It's still live on my channel, or it's still up on my channel and will remain there if you want to see it, hear it for yourself, or get the book and look in it for yourself. The appendix of Seth Speaks. Seth talks about this issue where people will let frustrations build up, and they won't express how they really feel about stuff until eventually they end up exploding with frustration and then end up really hurting someone, when if they had just said how they felt in the beginning, it never would have gotten to that escalated point and no one would have had to have gotten so hurt. So Seth would have to speak for himself, but as far as I can tell, Seth more or less basically agrees with me here, agrees with my perspective of saying, yes, it's right to communicate how you feel. So, don't throw any of that like new age positive thinking crap in my face and say, oh, I shouldn't be getting angry or upset because someone disliked one of my streams on the internet, or I shouldn't be getting angry and upset and expressing that. No, that's the exact opposite of the path of spirituality. That type of emotional suppression will hold you in resistance potentially forever. In fact, most likely forever, almost certainly forever, because what you resist persists. When you get angry and you want to express that, there's a reason for that, or sad or whatever. And I'm just, boy, if I continue to feel the way I feel, my voice in all of my streams, not just the Seth streams, is only going to get louder and louder and louder until people hear my message, until people realize that we've got to communicate with each other. We've got to express how we feel. We've got to be real with each other. We've got to say how we feel. Enough with the pretense. Enough with the fakery, enough with the lies, enough with pretending like everything is okay when it is not. Enough with building the illusion of peace on a foundation of lies. Oh my God. So I'm no one's puppet on a string. I'm going to say how I feel in my streams. I'm going to do what I want to do in my streams within, of course, the parameters, the framework, the acceptable framework of the YouTube guidelines. I will indeed adhere to that. And I'm all for, constructive criticism. As I've said, please let me know how I can improve if you think of something. But other than that, if someone doesn't like what I'm doing, maybe that's their issue that they need to work out. I'm here to do what I'm here to do, and that's all there is to it. Also, one more note I'll make real quick about the tarot streams, and then we will move on, is just that, so I was thinking about it. I was thinking how in that stream, I was live for almost an hour, and literally no one showed up wanting a reading. I think some people watched, or like they checked it out, but no one actually wanted a reading. I thought, I'm no longer going to wait for hours at a time for people to show up in my tarot streams. just for no one to show up. Like from now on, when I go to do those, if someone doesn't show up within the first like 30 minutes or so, unless I really feel like waiting around for some reason or don't have much else to do that day or whatever, I'm not going to be waiting around for people because I've got better things to do. I've got other things I would prefer to indulge in. I've got higher excitements to follow. And so that's what I'll be doing when that happens. So, you know, no offense to anyone out there, but I don't mean this in an offensive way or anything, but basically it's like I'm not going to sit around waiting for my clients or for people who want readings. They can sit around waiting for me. So, that felt a lot better. This is why I live for these streams that I do. So now I do need a tissue real quick, and so I'm going to get that, and then we will resume in a moment. And if I have any other powerful comments to make, then I'll fucking make them. So I'll be right back. Okay, I'm back. My lips look all right. They're getting a little weird on me. Okay. I do think that we are good to go. So, this has been an interesting stream thus far. Very enjoyable indeed. Let us see what else comes of it. (10:29) to 10:44. Now, resume dictation. The conscious mind is basically curious, open. It is also equipped to examine its own contents. Because of the psychological theories of the last century, many Western people believed that the primary purpose of the conscious mind was to inhibit quote-unquote unconscious material. Instead, as mentioned, parentheses, in this session, it is also meant to receive and interpret important data that comes to it from the inner self. Left alone, it does this very well. It receives and interprets impressions. What has happened, however, is that man has taught it to accept brackets only data coming from the outside world and to set up barriers against inner knowledge. Such a situation denies the individual his full strength and cuts him off, consciously now, from the important sources of his being. These conditions inhibit creative expression in particular, and deny the conscious self the continually emerging insights and intuitions otherwise available. Thought and feeling then seem separate. Creativity and intellect do not show themselves as the brothers that they are, but often as strangers. The conscious mind loses its fine edge. It cuts out from its experience the vast body of inner knowledge available to it. Divisions, illusionary ones, appear in the self. Left alone, the self acts spontaneously as a unit, but as an ever-changing one. Listening to voices both within and without, The conscious mind is able to form beliefs that are in league with the self's knowledge as received from material and non-material sources. Then examination of beliefs takes its place along with other activities, naturally, easily, without effort. Once the conscious mind has accepted a collection of conflicting beliefs, however, a definite attempt is necessary to sort these out. Remember, even false beliefs will seem to be justified in terms of physical data, since your experience in the outside world is the materialization of those beliefs. So you must work with the raw material of your ideas, even while your sense data may tell you that a given belief is obviously a truth. To change your experience or any portion of it, then you must change your ideas. Since you have been forming your own reality all along, the results will follow naturally. Pause. My throat, jeez. Pause. You must be convinced that you can alter your beliefs. You must be willing to try. Think of a limiting idea as a muddy color and your life as a multi-dimensional painting that is marred. You change the idea as an artist would his palette. The artist does not identify with the colors he uses. He knows he chooses them and applies them with a brush. So you paint your reality with your ideas in the same manner. You are not your ideas, nor even your thoughts. You are the self who experiences them. If a painter finds his hands stained with pigment at the end of a day, he can wash the stain off easily, knowing its nature. If you think that limiting thoughts are a portion of you, permanently attached therefore, you will not think of washing them off. You would behave instead like a mad artist who says, "My paints are a part of me. They have stained my fingers, and there is nothing I can do about it." There is no contradiction, though there may seem to be, between spontaneously being aware of your thoughts and examining them. You do not have to be blind to be spontaneous. You are not being spontaneous when you indiscriminately accept as your own, for a fact, every bit of data that comes to you. 11:10. Many beliefs would automatically fall away quite harmlessly if you were being truly spontaneous. Instead, you often harbor them. Previous limiting ideas, accepted, figuratively form a restraining bed, gathering other such materials so that your mind becomes filled with debris. When you are spontaneous, you accept the free nature of your mind, and it spontaneously makes decisions as to the validity or non-validity of data it receives. When you refuse to allow it this function, it becomes cluttered. Let's see here. When you are spontaneous, you accept the free nature of your mind, and it spontaneously makes decisions as to the validity or non-validity of data it receives. When you refuse to allow it this function, it becomes cluttered. So like operating intuitively, yes. That's another really good piece of advice in life is to, and with spirituality in general, is to let things be obvious. A lot of times things are more obvious than we even realize. No apple tree tries to grow violets. Quite automatically, it knows what it is and the framework of its own identity and existence. Pause. You have a conscious mind, but this is only the quote-unquote topmost portion of your mind. Much more of quote-unquote it is available to you. Much more of your knowledge can be conscious, therefore, but a false belief, a limiting one, is as ambiguous to your nature as any apple tree's idea that it was a violet plant. It could not produce violets, nor could it be a good apple tree while it tried to. The mistaken belief is one that does not fit the basic conditions of your inner being. So if you believe that you are at the mercy of physical events, you entertain a false belief. If you feel that your present experience was set in circumstances beyond your control, you entertain a false belief. So let that sink in, people. If you believe that you are at the mercy of physical events, you entertain a false belief. If you feel that your present experience was set in circumstances beyond your control, you entertain a false belief. This is such good stuff. You had a hand in the development of your childhood environment. You chose the circumstances. This does not mean that you are at the mercy of those circumstances. It means that you set challenges to be overcome, set goals to be reached, set up frameworks of experience through which you could develop, understand, and fulfill certain abilities. 11:29. The creative power to form your own experience is within you now, as it has been since the time of your birth and before. You may have chosen a particular theme for this existence, a certain framework of conditions, but within these you have the freedom to experiment, create, and alter conditions and events. Each person chooses for himself the individual patterns within which he will create this personal reality. But inside these bounds are infinite varieties of actions and unlimited resources. The inner self has embarked upon an exciting endeavor, in which it learns how to translate its reality into physical terms. The conscious mind is brilliantly attuned to physical reality, then, and often so dazzled by what it perceives that it is tempted to think physical phenomena is a cause rather than a result. Deeper portions of the self always serve to remind it that this is not the case. When the conscious mind accepts too many false beliefs, particularly if it sees that inner self as a danger, then it closes out these constant reminders. When this situation arises, the conscious mind feels itself assailed by a reality that seems greater than itself, over which it has no control. The deep feeling of security in which it should be anchored is lost. The false beliefs must be weeded out so that the conscious mind can become aware of its source once again, and open to the inner channels of splendor and power available to it. 1140. The ego is an offshoot of the conscious mind, so to speak. The conscious mind is like a gigantic camera with the ego directing the view and the focus. Left alone, various portions of the identity rise and form the ego, degroup and reform, all the while maintaining a marvelous spontaneity and yet a sense of oneness. See both sessions in Chapter 1. The ego is your idea of your physical image in relation to the world. Your self-image is not unconscious then. You are quite aware of it, though often you reject certain thoughts about it in favor of others. False beliefs can result in a rigid ego that insists upon using the conscious mind in one direction only, further distorting its perceptions. Often you quite consciously decide to bury a thought or an idea that might cause you to alter your behavior, because it does not seem to fit in with limiting ideas that you already hold. Listen to your own train of thoughts as you go about your days. What suggestions and ideas are you giving yourself? Realize that these will be materialized in your personal experience. Many quite limiting ideas will pass without scrutiny under the guise of goodness. You may feel quite virtuous, for example, in hating evil, or what seems to you to be evil. But if you find yourself concentrating upon either hatred or evil, you are creating it. If you are poor, you may feel quite self-righteous in your financial condition, looking with scorn upon those who are wealthy, telling yourself that money is wrong and so reinforcing the condition of poverty. If you are ill, you may find yourself dwelling upon the misery of your condition and bitterly envying those who are healthy, bemoaning your state, and therefore perpetuating it through your thoughts. If you dwell upon limitations, then you will meet them. You must create a new picture in your mind. It will differ from the picture your physical senses may show you at any given time, precisely in those areas where changes are required. Hatred of war will not bring peace, another example. Only love of peace will bring about those conditions. You may take a break or end the session as you prefer. Then we'll call it a night. 11:56 p.m. Jane was out of an excellent trance before I finished writing. She didn't remember any of the material. "My God, Rob, it's almost midnight," she exclaimed. Actually, she could have continued the session. She's been extremely active psychically lately. But I wondered about her being tired tomorrow. She has ESP class tomorrow night, a session Wednesday night, and writing class on Thursday. All right, so that concludes that session. So we'll take a little break and then continue. So I want to remind people here also that similar to how Seth even mentions, I don't know if it's in this book or if it was in Seth Speaks or both or what, but he mentions how, people will like end up under the false assumption that just because Jane and Rob are delivering this Seth material, that they should always be healthy, wealthy, and wise, that they should basically be living perfect lives. That's a false assumption because, well, among other reasons, we're all here to meet and learn how to overcome challenges. That's part of human life experience. I just also want to remind people that on that note, not to compare myself to the magnificence of Jane and Rob, my God, but that said, on that note, Poetic Heretic, should also not be expected to always be healthy, wealthy, and wise just because I'm reading this material and commenting on it and delivering this type of content in these Seth streams and the other stuff that I talk about, like, just because I know this stuff doesn't mean that my life is automatically going to be amazing. I'm on my own spiritual journey as well. I have my own challenges to meet as well that I'm doing regularly, all the time, just like anyone else. Now, some people might be tempted to say, oh, so then what you're teaching or what you're advocating for here, what you're talking about has no effect. And I say, no. My life used to be an absolute living hell, a nightmare that seemed so hopeless I couldn't see any possible way out. My life has improved dramatically over the years as a result of the application of these and other ideas. So it's not about getting to some perfect, like, utopian state of being where there's never ever anything unwanted anymore. That implies being finished, which implies endedness, and that can never be. The universe is forever expanding. The idea is to learn how to better utilize one's creative abilities to meet and overcome those challenges that we encounter in our lives so we can live more fulfilling lives. The idea is, if you don't have a lot of money, you can learn how to create and attract more of it. If you are in ill health, you can learn how to be healthier, and these are all things that I'm working on myself, just like anyone else. And I can definitely say that, well, first of all, I grew up with extremely negative beliefs about money. I grew up hearing things like, oh, like money doesn't grow on trees and, stuff like this. And there's hearing things like, oh, there's always this bill to pay. And it would bother me at times. It would sort of bear on my mind along with all the other endless things that, a kid and young teenager and then into even being like an older teenager has to worry about. It would sort of bear on my mind like, oh, there's these bills to pay and money doesn't grow on trees and oh, we can't have this right now because we're poor and we have to do without. So basically, I grew up with very negative beliefs about money, as many people, in fact, do. But the point I'm wanting to make here is that even I, by applying these kinds of ideas, have seen some improvement in my life, and not just recently either, other times, financially. Even I, with these incredibly negative beliefs about money, by applying these ideas of how to change your beliefs and whatnot, have seen some financial improvement occasionally throughout over the years. It's gone up and down, but it's definitely been there. And I must say lately in particular, the last month or so, I've really seen a lot of improvement, I must say. Now, by anyone's standards, I'm still poor as hell, but the point is, to me, like, this level of improvement, it's like, relatively speaking, to me, like, I almost feel rich now compared to how I used to feel, or I feel like, I feel so much better. So the point is that the ideas work, but don't expect to just all of a sudden live this amazing life where everything is perfect. That's not even the idea of trying to get to that. The idea is to learn how to better use your creative abilities and meet these challenges. So I hope I made that clear. Hey there, Rebecca. Did I get your message on Facebook Messenger? I did not, I'm afraid. I hardly ever use Facebook because I'm terrified of it, basically. I don't know why. Something about it, I think just experiences I had with it years ago kind of sort of traumatized me a little bit. And so I rarely ever go on there. In fact, I haven't gone on there since my birthday on January 5th. There's probably happy birthday wishes on there, and I haven't seen them. Like, I don't know. So I'm sorry. Like, I don't want to like ignore anyone, but if you ever want to contact me when I'm not live, Twitter is probably your best bet. Like, just go to my Twitter, twitter.com/poetic_heretic, and just like comment on like one of my most recent tweets, and I'll most likely see it. Just make sure that if you do that, you have the right settings enabled in your like security settings or whatever, so that I'll see the tweet, so that I'll see that someone commented on it, because otherwise it might not even show up and then I won't know. But yeah, on Instagram, all right. I'm terrible with Instagram DMs, but I see Instagram comments at least. Well, on my personal Instagram anyway, or whatever you'd call that, which let me just clarify all this as long as we're talking about it. So I'm actually gonna, no, I can, hang on, I have it on my computer. I'm gonna look at it right now just so I can make sure I give out the right information and don't accidentally say the wrong one. Okay, yes, if you want to get my attention on Instagram when I'm not live, or yeah, I guess, when I'm not live, you can comment one of my posts on the Instagram that is poetic_heretic, the one with the underscore in it. And also, indeed, my Twitter is also poetic_heretic. You can comment one of my recent tweets. All right, so I don't know, maybe one day I'll be past that trauma and I can start using Facebook again, but I don't know if it's just that or if I just can't stand Facebook for some reason. I don't know. I've never really liked Facebook. I don't know why. Like, when MySpace died back in the day, part of me died along with it. I was always a MySpace person. I was never a Facebook person, ever. Never, ever. And to this day, that remains true. But anyway, Twitter suspended me, making their account. Okay, good. Jeez, Twitter just suspending people. Not cool, Twitter, not cool. But anyway, do we need to turn on some lights in here before we resume? Yeah, I think that's better. Yeah, I went on a little bit of an angry rant earlier, so if you end up, if you rewind this at some point, like if you watch when it's not live or whatever, you can enjoy that. I think it was around an hour in or something. All right, so anyway, let me check one more thing and then we'll continue. I think we're still on chapter 2 here, even though we have been reading for a little while now. That's okay. Okay. Let us continue. Session 616, September 20th, 1972, 9:28 p.m., Wednesday. As we sat waiting for the session to begin at 9:20, Jane told me she just picked up, quote unquote, picked up the heading for chapter 3 of Seth's book, Telepathy and Belief Gathering, or Idea Gathering. She wasn't sure which. We'll see how close she came. At 9:25, she said, "I'm getting ready to start now. I can tell." She lit a cigarette and looked off to one side and down, her attention already turned inward as she prepared to psychically join a very familiar, quote-unquote, energy personality essence, as Seth calls himself. Good evening, Seth. Now, we will resume dictation. I quite realize that many of my statements will contradict the beliefs of those of you who accept the idea that the conscious mind is relatively powerless and that the answers to problems lie hidden beneath. Obviously, the conscious mind is a phenomenon, not a thing. It is ever-changing. It can be concentrated or turned by the ego in literally endless directions. it can view outward reality or turn inward, observing its own contents. There are gradations and fluctuations within its activity. It is far more flexible than you give it credit for. Pause. The ego can use the conscious mind almost entirely as a way of perceiving external or internal realities that coincide with its own beliefs. It is not that certain answers do not lie openly accessible, therefore, but that often you have set yourself on a course of action in which you believe, and you do not want to open yourself to any material that may contradict your current beliefs. If you are sick, for example, there is a reason. To recover thoroughly without taking on new symptoms, you must discover the reason. You may dislike your illness, but it is a course you have decided upon. While you are convinced that the course is necessary, you will keep the symptoms. Now, these may be the result of one specific belief or caused by a complex of beliefs held together. The beliefs, of course, will be accepted by you not as beliefs, but as reality. Once you understand that you form your reality, then you must begin to examine these beliefs by letting the conscious mind freely examine its own contents. 940. We will speak about health and illness more specifically later in the book. I would like to make one point here, however, that often psychoanalysis is simply a game of hide and seek, in which you continue to relinquish responsibility for your actions in reality and assign the basic cause to some area of the psyche hidden in a dark forest of the past. Then you give yourself the task of finding this secret. In so doing, you never think of looking for it in the conscious mind, since you are convinced that all deep answers lie far beneath, and, moreover, that your consciousness is not only unable to help you, but will often send up camouflages instead. So you play that game. When and if you manage to change your beliefs in that self-deceptive framework, then any suitable quote-unquote forgotten event from the past will be used as a catalyst. One would do as well as another. Parentheses, pause at 9:45, one of many. Now rock music began to blare out from one of the apartments below us. I felt the very floor vibrate, but Jane, in trance, didn't seem to be bothered. So this is where Seth seems to suggest something that I find very interesting, and it's one of the few areas where I'm not quite sure if I 100% agree with him or not, because he seems to be suggesting that basically what's happening when someone does shadow work is they're changing a belief, and whatever past event or issue or whatever that was the subject of the shadow work just serves as sort of an excuse, sort of a focal point, an example of the negative belief that is then changed to a positive belief. And Seth's thesis does indeed appear to be that it was never the, or I guess, no, it literally is. He basically spells it out. It was never the traumatic event itself or the painful or negative or whatever event itself, but the negative belief born out of that event that is the real cause of one's difficulties. So again, I'm not quite sure what I think of this, because I'm a strong advocate of shadow work and not just changing one's beliefs or analyzing one's beliefs, but also of, going back and healing traumas and stuff like that. I've found that to be very effective in my own life, but I don't know. I mean, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe Seth is right, and it really is ultimately just the beliefs, like he's saying in that last paragraph. He's like, when and if you manage to change your beliefs in that self-deceptive framework, then any suitable quote-unquote forgotten event from the past will be used as a catalyst. One would do as well as another. So I don't know. Not quite sure what to think about that. Maybe after I've experimented with these things more, I'll have a better idea of what the reality is. Though I have to say, part of me right now feels like I would certainly like that to be the case, that it's only ever the negative beliefs, because I will admit that as effective as shadow work has been for me, sometimes it can can almost feel overwhelming, like I'm just drowning in a sea of past trauma that I almost feel like I'm never gonna completely heal from or escape from, which is not true, but it can feel overwhelming at times. So, but I don't know, just because I want that to be true and just because Seth says it's true doesn't mean that it is true. We have to keep this in mind all the time. Just because a seemingly very wise, mysterious entity says that it's true doesn't necessarily mean it's true. So keep that in mind. Headed to the cardiologist. I'll be back in a bit. All right, Rebecca. See you soon. Hope the cardiologist rendezvous goes well. So let us continue. The basic beliefs, however, were always in your conscious mind and the reasons for your behavior. You simply had not examined its contents with the realization that your beliefs were not necessarily reality, but often your conceptions of it. At the same time, in psychoanalysis, you are often programmed to believe that the quote-unquote unconscious, being the source of such dark secrets, cannot be accounted upon as any bed of creativity or inspiration, and so you are denied the help that the inner portions of the self could give to your consciousness. 950. Usually when you do examine your conscious mind, you do so looking through or with your own structured beliefs. The knowledge that your beliefs are not necessarily reality will allow you to be aware of all the data that is consciously available to you. I am not telling you to examine your thoughts so frequently and with such vigor that you get in your own way, but you are not fully conscious unless you are aware of the contents of your conscious mind. I am also emphasizing the fact that the conscious mind is equipped to receive information from the inner self as well as the exterior universe. I am not telling you to inhibit thoughts or feelings. Oh boy, here we go. Another reason I really like Seth. I am not telling you to inhibit thoughts or feelings. I am asking that you become aware of those you have. Realize that they form your reality. Concentrate upon those that give you the results that you want. If you find all of this difficult, you can also examine your physical reality in all of its aspects. Realize that your physical experience and environment is the materialization of your beliefs. If you find great exuberance, health, effective work, abundance, smiles on the faces of those you meet, then take it for granted that your beliefs are beneficial. If you see a world that is good, people that like you, take it for granted again that your beliefs are beneficial. But if you find poor health, a lack of meaningful work, a lack of abundance, a world of sorrow and evil, then assume that your beliefs are faulty and begin examining them. We will later discuss the nature of mass reality, but for now we are dwelling upon the personal aspects. The main point I wanted to make in this chapter was that your conscious beliefs are extremely important, and that you are not at the mercy of events or causes that dwell far beneath your awareness. That is the end of the chapter, and you may take a break. Thank you. Very good. 10:01. There were several developments during break, and I'll try to discuss them in order before we get into chapter 3. To begin with, Jane left her excellent trance easily, saying she had barely heard the music. It still boomed up from below us, but she wasn't interested in that. Instead, she talked about feeling sort of funny, that's the quotes, feeling sort of funny, without being able to elaborate. While we had a quick snack, I asked her if she thought the recent strange behavior of our cat, Willie, could stem from his reactions to our own psychic states. We'd seen this happen before, although not recently. Early this month, Willie had picked up a case of fleas that was stubbornly resisting treatment. He'd taken to staying outside all night as well as most of the day. He was also losing weight. Our other cat, Rooney, had always seemed to be immune to us in such matters, and even now was conducting himself in his usual leisurely fashion. Willie was outside now in a light rain that had begun a couple of hours ago. At supper time, he'd actually seemed to feel that the inside of the house was forbidden territory and had refused to come in. Now I went down the back stairs and called for him as I circled the house. No Willie. I met Jane in the front hall. Here the music was even louder, thundering out from the first floor apartment. Once we were back upstairs in our living room, the music led me to talk about peer groups involving young people. We like rock and often dance to it. It's alive and vital. I also believe that Jane uses its energy when we hear it in the house during sessions. I commented upon the value many youths obviously placed upon conforming and their nonconformity. Jane described her own similar, intense concerns in high school and college. I had evidently chosen not to be much influenced by those factors, though. I'd always been something of a loner. I asked that Seth comment upon Willie's behavior, if he cared to, after dictation. Then Jane said, I knew I was feeling funny tonight. Now I get it. It's like I've got 3 channels from Seth going at once. I've even got directions. She pointed off to her upper right as she sat in her rocker. Seth comes through on his book from here, on this channel. Next she indicated her lower right. Then over here, immediately available, is Seth on you and me and Willie, and also on the portrait you asked me about the other day, the one you just finished. Over here now, Jane said, designating her upper left, is Seth on what you were just saying about peer groups, how young people feel it's so important to fit in with their own kind, and why. And why I felt that way, but you didn't. Hey, I've even got a bunch of history about that, all ready to deliver. A lot of material on each idea. I was really confused for a while, yet now I see that each thing's separate, already prepared by Seth. You're not going to get 2 sentences about one subject, then switch to another one. Jane laughed. Which channel do you want? I'm keeping my mouth shut, I said, joking. How about going back to the book? Wait, what's this supposed to say? Seems to be a typo or whatever in the book. I think what it's supposed to say here is, how about going back to the book? Question mark. I thought doing that would help her control the proliferation of channels until we could learn more about the development. The possibility had been indicated often. Witness Seth's ability to discuss a variety of subjects with the members of a group, even if they were strangers to Jane. The new step in her abilities would be her conscious awareness of the blocks of material already prepared and awaiting delivery. Jane promptly agreed to resume bookwork. I've never felt just this way before, like I've been programmed in advance. It's as though I need 3 voice boxes. That's really weird. I do get it as sound, though. If I could talk 3 times at once, I could deliver finished material on those 3 things. Now I have to pick the right channel to get Seth back on his book. And it almost seems that if someone else came here now and mentioned a subject, I'd have that information already too. Each channel is clear as a bell, is as clear as a bell. There's no static or bleed through between them. There. Now I've just got another one. Jane pointed to her lower left. And it explains all of this. She laughed again. Just call me Station Jane. And that is the end of that chapter. Chapter 3, up next, is called Suggestion, Telepathy, and the Grouping of Beliefs. We will begin that in a moment after I take a little breather. I think I'm going to have to get up and stretch. I'm feeling almost slightly tingly in my hands and arms. Probably not a good thing. Okay, I had a nice stretch. We'll resume in just a moment. We're finally about to get to chapter 3. Might have to edit the title of the stream after to just chapters 2 through 3 instead of through 4. And that's okay. That happens often enough. Let's see. Kind of funny they're talking about rock music. I guess you could say I like rock music too, although more specifically I like what is basically known as gothic or melodic metal. That's my favorite. So not just regular metal and not just rock, but gothic / melodic metal, and it's also often known as symphonic metal. So kind of interesting we have that in common. Also, I am craving a Mountain Dew like crazy right now, so I'll probably go get that at the next break or sometime soon. Don't worry, my beliefs, speaking of beliefs, my beliefs when it comes to something like Mountain Dew are very, very positive. I really don't think it has much, if any, negative impact on my body. Been drinking it for years, and if anything, I've gotten a hell of a lot healthier since I started drinking it, so, whatever. I think it helps me release stress, reduces stress. So yeah, I feel like that will also help with, I don't know, just my staying awake since I'm so sleep deprived right now, just help me, I don't know, stabilize. So anyway, I trust my body's cravings. All right, here we go. Chapter 3, Suggestion, Telepathy, and the Grouping of Beliefs. Seth returned in a humorous manner at 10:37. Now, resume dictation. Chapter 3, Suggestion, Telepathy, and the Grouping of Beliefs. Pause. Note the difference between Seth's heading for this chapter and the one Jane gave before the session. Ideas have an electromagnetic reality. Beliefs are strong ideas about the nature of reality. Ideas generate emotion. Like attracts like, so similar ideas group about each other, and you accept those that fit in with your particular quote-unquote system of ideas. The ego attempts to maintain a clear point of focus, of stability, so that it can direct the light of the conscious mind with some precision and concentrate its focus in areas of actuality that seem permanent. As mentioned in Chapter 1, the ego, while a portion of the whole self, can be defined as a psychological quote-unquote structure composed of characteristics belonging to the personality as a whole, organized together to form a surface identity. Now, generally speaking, through the period of a lifetime, this allows for the easy emergence of many tendencies and abilities. It permits many more potentials to emerge than would otherwise be possible. If this were not the case, for example, your interests throughout life would not change. The ego, while appearing to be permanent, then forever changes as it adapts to new characteristics from the whole self and lets others recede. Footnote. In larger terms, Seth's ideas as to what the quote-unquote whole self is take in a great deal, with reincarnation and probable personalities, for instance, being only two of the concepts involved. The safest thing to say would be that each session, even, adds to our knowledge of what a constantly expanding whole self can be. See both the Seth material and Seth Speaks. End of footnote. Otherwise, it would not be responsive to the needs and desires of the entire personality. Again, we're talking about the ego here. Because it is intimately connected with other portions of the self, it does not basically feel alienated or alone, but proudly acts as the director of the conscious mind's focus. It is an adjunct of the conscious mind in that respect. 1051. Jane's delivery was very intense. Basically, it understands its source and its nature. It is the portion of the mind, then, that looks out upon physical reality and surveys it in relation to those characteristics of which it is composed at any given time. It makes its judgments according to its own idea of itself. It is the most physically oriented portion of your inner self, but it is not, however, apart from your inner self. It sits on the windowsill, so to speak, between you and the exterior world. Voice stronger for emphasis. It can also look in both directions. It makes judgments about the nature of reality in relationship to its and your needs. It accepts or does not accept beliefs. It cannot shut out information from your conscious mind, however, but it can refuse to pay attention to it. This does not mean that the information becomes unconscious. It is simply thrown into a corner of your mind, unassimilated and not organized into the parcel of beliefs upon which you are presently concentrating. It is there if you look for it. 11 o'clock. It is not invisible, nor do you have to know exactly what you are looking for, which of course would make the situation nearly impossible. All you have to do is decide to examine the contents of your conscious mind, realizing that it contains treasures that you have overlooked. Another way to do this is to recognize through examination that the physical effects you meet exist as data in your conscious mind, and the information that formerly seemed unavailable will be obvious. The seemingly invisible ideas that cause your difficulties have quite obvious visible physical effects, and these will lead you automatically to the conscious area in which the initiating beliefs or ideas reside. Once more, if you become aware of your own conscious thoughts, these themselves will give you clues, for they clearly speak your beliefs. If, for example, you have scarcely enough money on which to live, and you examine your thoughts, you may find yourself constantly thinking, I can never pay this bill. I never have any luck. I'll always be poor. Or you will find yourself envying those who have more, degrading the value of money perhaps, and saying that those who have it are unhappy, or at best, spiritually poor. 11:10. When you find these thoughts in yourself, you may say, and rather indignantly, but those things are all true. I am poor. I cannot meet my bills, and so forth. In so doing, you see, you accept your belief about reality as a characteristic of reality itself, and so the belief is transparent or invisible to you, but it causes your physical experience. You must change the belief. I will give you methods to allow you to do this. You may follow your thoughts in another area and find yourself thinking that you are having difficulty because you are too sensitive. Finding the thought, you may say, but it is true, I am. I react with such great emotion to small things. But that is a belief, and a limiting one. If you follow your thoughts further, you may find yourself thinking, I am proud of my sensitivity. It sets me apart from the mob. Or, I am too good for this world. These are limiting beliefs. They will distort true reality, your own true reality. As an aside here, I will say that it seems more and more these days that people are almost, well, I don't know, I could be misinterpreting things, but it almost seems like people are being told that they should be offended by certain things, and that they are being told that they should be upset by certain things. Like they're being programmed to feel like they should be upset by things that they wouldn't normally or naturally feel upset by. And thus, therefore, we have people being so sensitive these days. You know, Seth was just talking about sensitivity. We have, at least from my perspective, and many people agree with me, I've heard many other people say this, we have so many sensitive people today. Now, there's nothing wrong with being sensitive. Like, don't get me wrong. There's absolutely nothing wrong with being sensitive. It's completely valid. It's completely okay. But what is questionable here is when people accept the belief that they should be sensitive when they wouldn't normally be. When you accept the negative belief that you should be upset by something that would not normally upset you, that is not helping anyone. That is to your detriment. That is to your and everyone else's detriment. So, and you can interpret that, draw whatever conclusions you want. That's my perspective. So where were we? 11:17. These are but a few samples of the ways in which your own quite conscious ideas may be invisible to you while being available all the time and limiting your experience. Now, we have been speaking of the conscious mind, for it is the director of your activities physically. I told you, at the beginning of this chapter, that it was important to realize the ego's position as the most quote-unquote exterior portion of the inner self, not alienated but looking outward to physical reality. Using this analogy, portions of the self on the other side of the conscious mind constantly receive telepathic data. Remember, there are no divisions, so the terms used are simply to make the discussion easier. The ego tries to organize all material coming into the conscious mind for its purposes. The egos are those that have come to the surface at any given time in the self's overall encounter with physical reality. As I said, the ego cannot keep information out of the conscious mind, but it can refuse to focus directly upon it. 1125. Now, the telepathic information, using our analogy, comes through deeper portions of the self. These parts have such an amazing capacity to receive that some organization is necessary to sift the data. Let me reread that. Now, the telepathic information, using our analogy, comes through deeper portions of the self. These parts have such an amazing capacity to receive that some organization is necessary to sift the data. Some is simply not important to you. It concerns people of whom you have no other knowledge. You are a sender and a receiver. Because ideas have an electromagnetic reality, beliefs, because of their intensity, radiate strongly. Due to the organizing structure of your own psychological nature, similar beliefs congregate, and you will readily accept those with which you already agree. Limiting ideas therefore predispose you to accept others of a similar nature. Exuberant ideas of freedom, spontaneity, and joy automatically collect others of their kind also. There is a constant interplay between yourself and others in the exchange of ideas, both telepathically and on a conscious level. This interchange follows, again, your conscious beliefs. It is fashionable in some circles to believe that you react physically to telepathically received messages despite your conscious beliefs or ideas. This is not the case. You react only to those telepathic messages that fit in with your conscious ideas about yourself and your reality, emphatically. Let me add that the conscious mind is itself spontaneous. It enjoys playing with its own contents, so I am not here recommending a type of stern mental discipline in which you examine yourself at every moment. I am telling you about countering measures that you can take in areas in which you are not pleased with your experience. Do you want a break? Yes, I guess so. We will indeed then. Humorously, thank you. 1137. Again, Jane had really been under. She didn't remember the material and was amazed that an hour had passed. I told her I'd taken the break because I was still worried about Willie. Jane said she believed that, quote, Seth could do 3 books at once, a chapter at a time on each, and with no confusion among them. Right now, I feel that this whole book's just there, ready to be given for the writing down. End quote. Her very active dream life had evidently included a lot of preparation for it, she added, but I didn't ask her any questions that might open up more channels. Quote, not since the session started, brackets, in 1963, have I felt that Seth's material was so richly available. I wasn't able to be that open before this. I couldn't accept a lot that was right there because it didn't fit in with my beliefs. Jane pointed to her left. Now I could get stuff on archaeology, of all things. Wild. She had doubts, though, about her ability to come through with the very technical data for the young scientist who had called her before the last session. She felt somewhat, quote-unquote, remote from his questions while she was so involved in producing this book. Resume at 11:55. Now, give us a moment for Willie. In an odd way, he is himself somewhat frightened of his behavior. Rupert has decided to leave the house more often and be free to go outside whenever he wishes, not to spend so much time inside because of his work. Footnote, a reminder, Seth usually calls Jane by her male entity name, Rupert, and thus he, him, etc. End of footnote. Now he has sent Willie out as a testing device, and the cat does not know exactly what has happened. Willie likes to go out, but he is not used to being out all of the time. To an extent, he feels banished. Aw, poor cat. He simply picked up Rupert's feelings now, which are not strong, and Rupert's growing vehemence of intent. In a way, these were not directed at the cat, yet Rupert also knew the cat would pick them up. Willie was always the house cat, you see, and Jane stayed in the house all day, writing. So it is the house cat who changes habits rather than Rooney, parentheses, our other cat. To an extent you both acquiesced, the doors being left open. You obviously have only to keep them closed. Do you follow me here? Yes. The furnace, knocked out in last June's flood, hasn't been repaired yet because of a shortage of skilled workers in the area. Everything in the house is damp and swollen. Doors especially don't work easily, if at all, so we've been taking the easy way out. Now give us a moment. Rupert is beginning now to itch to go out, but it is the cat who itches. Quote, parentheses, quote, that's what I've been wondering about. Your Willie is in no danger, but show him your love and regulate his ingoing and outgoing. Not that Rupert need regulate his, but that his distraction or impatience causes the cat to overreact. Now, Rupert's sensing of the channels does represent a development and has been possible for some time, but it is only now entering his experience. Do remind him of his success in this and other areas, for the feeling and reality of success can and will be carried over. I will end our session. I will see to it that I speak about your painting before or after book dictation. Louder, jovially. I am on Channel 1 this evening. My heartiest regards. Thank you. Good evening. Good evening, Seth. And at 12:07 a.m., after coming out of trance, Jane attempted to describe a manifestation which, though invisible, was, quote, hovering before us now like a big oval type of thing, end quote. It was made up of a group of energies that could represent a personality like Seth, she said, yet it was nameless. It was just there, and gave her no feeling particularly that it was going to be of assistance. Jane had trouble being precise about the effect and her feelings in connection with it, and I had difficulty translating her narrative into written words. I mention it here in case something develops. She's had similar perceptions occasionally before. By now, the members of ESP class are staying on top of each session for the book, implementing the material before the chapters are finished. So are Jane and I. It looks like all of us will grow as the book does. A note added a few days later. This session was held on Wednesday. We had guests the following Friday evening, and as Jane described the multiple channel effects to them, she realized that she was tuning into some of Seth's backlog of data about peer groups and the need to conform. Seth hadn't actually given us the material during Wednesday's session, nor did he now. Instead, Jane verbalized it on her own to some extent. The next morning, I asked her to note down what she remembered of it. Quote, telling Rob and our friends about the channels that I became aware of in the last session, Jane wrote, I suddenly began drawing upon the one with the information about conformity and the need for individual expression. I realized that Seth had a great amount of information all gathered in and there, including the biological foundations of both characteristics. Take the amoeba, a one-celled microscopic animal, for instance. I knew that the protoplasm in the amoeba, the essential living matter, represents the individual needing to go out quality, yet the protoplasm must conform to its environment, in this case the amoeba's quote-unquote body, which can only move as a unit when directed by the individualistic need to react to stimuli. The protoplasm, while reacting quote-unquote on its own, has to take the cell form into consideration. This ensures the integrity of the whole unit. To move, the protoplasm must necessarily move the whole thing. This is just a sample of the implications called up by Rob's talk about peer groups in the session Wednesday. The material itself has much more available on biological aspects, plus cultural and historical ones. It could also discuss the same question from the view of the growth of the human body and the development, say, of cancer cells that break out of a conforming pattern and superimpose a quote-unquote new one, their own, on the unit structure. There, I just got that last sentence as I finished this account. That idea is something new for me, too. All right, that concludes that session. So let's take a breather, and we will resume shortly. Oh boy, I've been awake this long, so little sleep, and my eyes are burning. My eyes are burning, but I am pushing forward anyway. I don't care what it costs. Continuing to do what I do, because that's what I'm here to do. And speaking of doing what I'm here to do, I think I will go get that Mountain Dew here very soon. Just sip this water some more. All right, I think I can go until next break before I get that though. So let's continue. Session 617, September 25th, 1972, 9:20 p.m., Monday. While we were eating breakfast this morning, Jane and I heard a peculiar, multiple, quote-unquote, barking sound that came from the sky. I leaned out of a window just in time to see a large formation of geese fly over, obviously southbound for the winter. They flew low, I thought, their formation unbalanced. One tail of their inverted V was much longer than the other. Inside the V, as though being protected, flew a small group that was not in formation. I found the spectacle strangely moving, and so did Jane. We marveled at the inherent order in the migration, the loud honking that so proudly demonstrated its tightness. Others, we saw, were impressed too. Men doing flood repair work in a downstairs apartment came outside to stand in the driveway, staring skyward. I took the flight as another sign of nature's amazing variety and vitality, a strong reminder of values I was afraid we humans often denigrated. Jane's delivery as Seth was fast from the beginning of the session. Good evening, Seth. We will resume dictation. You will react, therefore, to all the information that you receive according to your conscious beliefs concerning the nature of reality. The deeper portions of the self do not have to take the ego's idea of time into consideration, so these portions of the self also deal with the data that would ordinarily escape the ego's perception, perhaps until a certain quote-unquote point of ego time was reached. That sentence was a bit complicated. Let's hear that again. So you will react, therefore, to all the information that you receive according to your conscious beliefs concerning the nature of reality. So we filter our information we get through our beliefs. The deeper portions of the self do not have to take the ego's idea of time into consideration. So these portions of the self also deal with data that would ordinarily escape the ego's perceptions, perhaps until a certain quote-unquote point of ego time was reached. The ego, which must manipulate most directly with the everyday world, takes time, clock time, quite seriously. Even the ego, however, realizes to some extent that clock time is a convention, but it does not like such conventions broken. It will often neglect any clairvoyant or precognitive material that comes into the conscious mind from the deeper portions of the self. On occasion, when the ego recognizes that such data can be highly practical, it then becomes more liberal in its recognition of it, but only when such information fits in with its concepts of what is possible and not possible. Now, the ego's concepts are your concepts, since it is a part of you. If you dwell on ideas of danger or potential disaster, if you think of the world mainly in terms of your physical survival and consider all those circumstances that may work against it, then you may find yourself suddenly aware of precognitive dreams that foretell incidents of accidents, earthquakes, robberies, or murders. Your own idea of the perilous nature of existence becomes so strong that the ego allows this data to emerge, even though it is quote-unquote out of time, because your fearful beliefs convince you that you must be on guard. The incidents do not even have to involve you. From all the unconscious telepathic and clairvoyant data available, however, you will be aware of this particular grouping, and it will only serve to reinforce your idea that existence is above all else, or is above all perilous. If this information becomes available in the dream state, you may then say, I am frightened of dreams. My bad dreams so often come true. So you try to inhibit memory of your dreams. Instead, you should examine your conscious beliefs, for they are so strong that they are causing you not only to focus upon calamity in the physical world, but to use your inner abilities to the same end. 937. Telepathic communication is constant. This is usually at an unconscious level merely because your conscious mind is in a state of becoming. It cannot hold all of the information you possess. As an example, if your conscious creative ideas are relatively positive, you will react to telepathically received information of a similar nature. Even if you do so, why the fuck is this not working? If your conscious ideas are relatively positive, you will react to telepathically received information of a similar nature, even if you do so on an unconscious level. As I mentioned earlier in the 616th session, you are also sending your own telepathic thoughts outward. Others will react to those according to their own ideas of reality. A family can constantly reinforce its joy, laughter, gaiety, and spontaneity by concentrating on ideas of vitality, strength, and creativity, or it can let half of its energy slip away, deeper, by reinforcing resentments, angers, and thoughts of doubt and failure. So it would seem here that Seth wants this to be particularly emphasized, and so I'm going to read it with the kind of emphasis that I kind of imagine that he used through Jane when delivering this or when conveying this. So, a family can constantly reinforce its joy, gaiety, and spontaneity by concentrating on ideas of vitality, strength, and creativity, or it can let half of its energy slip away by reinforcing resentments, angers, and thoughts of doubt and failure. And Rob replies to that here in the book saying, I get it. And then he goes on to say, Seth's clever, somewhat humorous stresses in the above paragraph were intended to make certain points to me personally while he continued work on his book. Involved were discussions between Jane and me today, and some poor perceptions on my part. Either way, the ideas of reality are reinforced both consciously and unconsciously, not only within the family, but among all those with whom the family comes in contact. You get what you concentrate upon. There is no other main rule. Footnote. Here Seth quotes himself exactly from an unscheduled session held on February 26, 1972, during our vacation in Marathon, Florida. End of footnote. See, my issue with that footnote just now is I could almost swear, in fact, I'm virtually certain that Seth also said that in a session in Seth Speaks, the book previous to this one, the sentence, you get what you concentrate upon, or well, the two sentences, you get what you concentrate upon, there is no other main rule. So I think Rob, despite his being the clever, informationally aware Gemini that he was, missed that little point, apparently. It may be easy for you to see beliefs that are invisible to others in themselves. Reading this book, you may be able to point at friends or acquaintances and see clearly that their ideas are invisible beliefs which limit their experience, and yet be blind to your own invisible beliefs, which you take so readily as truth or characteristics of reality. Your sense data, again, will most definitely reinforce your ideas. You will also react clairvoyantly and telepathically to inner information at an unconscious level that is, once more, quote-unquote collected under the organization of your quite conscious concepts concerning existence in general, and your own in particular. So that, I know that was a lot to take in, so let's read that again. You will also react clairvoyantly and telepathically to inner information at an unconscious level that is, once more, quote-unquote collected under the organization of your quite conscious concepts concerning existence in general, and your own in particular. So you are locked into physical situations that are corroborated by the great evidence of sense data. And of course, it is convincing because it reflects so beautifully, so creatively, and so actively your own ideas and beliefs, whether they are positive or negative. In greater terms, positive and negative have little meaning, for the physical experience is meant as a learning one. But if you are unhappy, then the word negative has a meaning. Pause, one of few, at 9:50. I expect that by now my readers have at least begun to examine their beliefs, and perhaps obtained a glimpse of some invisible ones that had been accepted before as definite aspects of reality. Now, if you are honest with your lists, you will finally come to what I call core beliefs, strong ideas about your own existence. Many other subsidiary beliefs that earlier seemed separate from each other should now appear quite clearly as being offshoots of core beliefs. They seem logical only in their relationship to a core idea. Once the core belief is understood to be a false one, the others will fall away. It is the core belief which is strong enough to so focus your perception that you perceive from the physical world only those events that correlate with it. It is also the strength of the core belief that draws up from the vast bank of inner knowledge only those events that seem to fit within its organization. Yeah, so basically, like, as you start digging deeper and deeper and deeper into your own beliefs and why you believe what you believe and why you believe that belief and why you believe that belief, eventually you'll come to very basic core beliefs. A lot of times these will be beliefs like, I am bad, or I'm afraid of love, or I'm not good enough, or life is always hard, or it's impossible to get what I want, or maybe that. Sometimes, there could even be core beliefs behind maybe some of those, but you'll get to some very fundamental beliefs that are like the root of other negative beliefs that are more easily accessible in your conscious mind or more readily apparent, but core beliefs are easily accessible as well. You just have to go looking for them. So there you go. That's basically what Seth is saying here. So where were we? Now let me give you a brief example of a core belief. It is a blanket belief. Human nature is inherently evil. This is a core belief. About it will spring events that only serve to reinforce it. Experiences, both personal and global, will come into the perception of a person who holds this belief that will only serve to deepen it further. From all the available physical data of newspapers, television, letters, and private communication, he or she will concentrate only upon those issues that, quote-unquote, prove that point. Suspicion of others will grow, to say nothing about the individual's personal distrust. The belief will reach into the most intimate areas of his or her life, and finally, no evidence will seem to be available to disprove it. This is a sample of an invisible core belief at its worst. A person holding it will not trust a mate, family, friends, colleagues, country, or the world in general. Another more personal core belief: my life is worthless, what I do is meaningless. Now, a person who holds such an idea will ordinarily not recognize it as an invisible belief. Instead, he or she may emotionally feel that life has no meaning, that individual action is meaningless, that death is annihilation, and connected to this will be a conglomeration of subsidiary beliefs that deeply affect the family involved and all those with whom such a person comes in contact. In writing down your list of personal beliefs, therefore, leave nothing out. Examine the list as though it belonged to someone else. I did not want to imply that you make a list of specifically negative ideas, however. It is of supreme importance that you recognize the existence of joyful beliefs and take into consideration those elements of your own experience with which you have had success. I want you to capture that feeling of accomplishment and to translate it or transfer it to areas in which you have had difficulty. But you must remember that the ideas exist first and the experience physically follows. You may take your break. 10:06 to 10:19. You make your own reality. I cannot say this too often. There will be periods where all of your beliefs are at an even par, so to speak. They will agree. The ideas may be quite limited. They may be false. They may be based upon premises that are not true. Their vitality and strength, however, will be quite real and seem to bring excellent results. Wealth is everything. Now, this idea is far from a truth. The person who accepts it completely, though, will be wealthy and in excellent health, and everything will fit in quite well with his beliefs. Yet the idea is still a belief about reality, and so there will be invisible gulfs in his experience of which he is ignorant. On the outside, the situation will look most advantageous, and while the person seems quite content, beneath there will be the gnawing knowledge of incompletion. On the surface, there will be balance. So as your beliefs change, there will be alterations in your experience and behavior, and points of stress, creative stress, while you are learning. Our rich man just mentioned may suddenly realize that his belief is limiting, and that he concentrated upon it so exclusively so that money and health became his sole aims. The shattered belief may leave him open to illness, which would seem like a negative experience. Yet through the illness, he may be led to areas of perception he had earlier denied, and brackets he may be enriched in that particular manner. The shifting of belief may then open him to question his other beliefs, and he realizes that in the area of wealth, for example, he did very well because of his beliefs. But in those other areas, perhaps in deeper experiences opened by his illness, he learns that human experience includes dimensions of reality that had earlier been closed to him, and that these are also easily within his reach, and without the illness that originally brought them forth. A new conglomeration of beliefs might emerge. In the meantime, there was stress, but it was creative. So this is a very interesting idea that Seth talks about, the idea that as we change our beliefs, it can create stress in our lives because old assumptions are suddenly being called into question and we have to rethink things and whatnot. But the stress itself is creative. It has a creative purpose. 1031. Now here's another example. Your conscious thoughts regulate your health. The persistent idea of illness will make you ill. While you believe that you become ill because of viruses, infections, or accidents, then you must go to doctors who operate within that system of belief. And because you believe in their cures, hopefully you will be relieved of your difficulty. Because you do not understand that your thoughts create illness, you will continue to undergo it, however, and new symptoms will appear. You will again return to the doctor. When you are in the process of changing beliefs, when you are beginning to realize that your thoughts and feelings cause illness, then for a while, you may not know what to do. In the larger context, you realize that the doctor can at best give you temporary relief, yet you may not be completely convinced as yet of your own ability to change your thoughts, or you may be so cowed by their effectiveness that you are frightened. So there is a period of stress in between beliefs, so to speak, while you dispense with one set and are learning to use another. But here you become involved with one of the most meaningful aspects of the nature of personal reality, as you test your thoughts against what seems to be. There may be a time before you learn how to change your thoughts effectively, but you are engaged in a basic meaningful endeavor. The truth is then that you form your reality directly. You react consciously and unconsciously to your beliefs. You collect from the physical universe and the interior one data that seems to correlate with your beliefs. Believe, then, that you are a being unlimited by nature, born into flesh to materialize as best you can the great joy and spontaneity of your nature. Now you may take a break. This will be a shorter chapter because of the previous long one. 1040. Jane's pace had been consistently faster than in previous sessions of the book. Break was short. Beginning at 1045, Seth gave several pages of material for me. I'd hardly expected it. Then he wound up the session at 11:20 p.m. with this comment. Now, tell Rupert there will be schools of thought built from core beliefs. Tell him that. All right, that concludes that session. Let's see how much longer it is until end of the chapter here. Not too much longer, okay. Well, I am getting very hungry, but what I'm thinking is, this is not too much longer, like, I could just go, like, I could go downstairs, eat something real quick, grab the Mountain Dew, come back here, finish this out, take a break, eat a little more, come back, do, like, another part of this today, because I'm not done yet. And then once I finish with that, then I'll go have, like, a full-fledged feast. But yeah, I'm gonna spend just a couple minutes getting a little food and drink, so I will be right back. So if you're watching when this is not live, feel free to fast forward a bit. All right, here we go. Alright, I'm back with a vengeance. Or maybe that's just a negative belief. Nothing like a little hunger to make food taste so good. That was the most delicious snack I've had in forever. Damn. I think maybe what I'll actually do is I'll finish this chapter, and then between streams I'll just I will have like a full-fledged feast then, because I can eat pretty fast, I think. I don't know. Then again, maybe other people consider it slowly. I don't know. I think I can be back within an hour or about 1 hour later. And then I'll read even more. What is my hair doing right now? It's bugging me. Also, we need more lighting. Hang on. Okay. Yeah, I'll finish out the chapter, then I'll take a break to have lunch. And then after that, I'll come back and read some more, because I'm not done yet. I'm not satisfied yet. I freaking love streaming. I love conveying information like this. I love getting this stuff out to people. I love expressing myself. I love all of it so much. And I'm not done yet. So, there we go. I guess I'll just keep going for as long as I feel like it. I'm following my excitement. All right. Session 618, September 28th, 1972, 9:45 p.m., Thursday. The session was witnessed by writer Richard Bach and his editor Eleanor Frieda. I'm not sure how to say that. They flew into Elmira yesterday after poor weather had delayed their scheduled arrival on Tuesday in time for ESP class. Dick had also visited us in late August when Seth had chapter 1 of this book underway. I was wondering, I was looking to see, I was like, did I end up on a previous chapter? Because I'm pretty sure I already read that in this book, but yeah, I guess they revisited. Jane had delivered a rather lengthy but informal session for our guests last night as we lingered around the supper table after a late meal. Dick recorded and... There's another typo. It says recorded a... what is this supposed to say? Dick recorded something and is to send us a transcript. Probably Dick recorded it and is to send us a transcript. So later we'll be able to add a few excerpts from that material to this session. Earlier this evening, Jane had sung quite spontaneously in Sumari, but her manner became more deliberate now as she began speaking for Seth. Now, good evening, Seth, and we will resume dictation. Give us a moment. Pause. Core beliefs are those about which you build your life. You are consciously aware of these, though often you do not focus your attention upon them. They become invisible, therefore, unless you become aware of the contents of your conscious mind. To become acquainted with your own ideas and beliefs, you must walk among them, symbolically speaking, without blinders. You must look through the structures that you have yourself created, the organized ideas upon which you have grouped your experience. To see clearly into your own mind, you must first of all unstructure your thoughts, follow them without judging them, without comparing them to the framework of your beliefs. Structured beliefs collect and hold your experience, packaging it, so to speak. And so when you look at a given experience that seems like another, you put it into the same structured package, often without examination. Such beliefs can hold surprises. When you lift up the cover of one, you may find that it has served to hide valuable information that did not belong there. An artificial grouping of ideas, like paper flower, can be collected about a standard core belief. And it says we have a footnote, but I don't know if there is an actual footnote. Maybe that's another issue and is meant to say paper flowers. I don't know. In that case, it would be an artificial grouping of ideas, like paper flowers, can be collected about a standard core belief. The core belief, because of its intensity and because of your habits, will often tend to attract to itself others of a like nature. Beliefs attract like beliefs. A whole book could be written about that idea alone, that one sentence from Seth. They will hang on. If you are not accustomed to examining your own mind, then you can allow separate growths of this kind to form about a belief until you cannot distinguish one from the other. This can develop to such an extent that all of your experience is seen only in relationship to this idea growth. Parentheses, Seth called for the hyphen, and there is a hyphen between idea and growth. Idea growth. Data that seems unrelated to this core belief is then not assimilated but thrown into the corners of your mind, unused, and you are denied the value of the information. Separate portions of your mind can contain such chambers of inactive material. This information will not be a part of the organized structure of your usual thoughts. Though the data is consciously available, you can be relatively blind to it. 10 o'clock. Usually when you look into your conscious mind, you do so for a particular reason, to find some information. But if you have schooled yourself to believe that such data is not consciously available, then it will not occur to you to find it in your conscious mind. If furthermore your conscious data is strongly organized about a core belief, then this will automatically make you blind to experience that is not connected with it. A core belief is invisible only when you think of it as a fact of life, and not as a belief about life, only when you identify with it so completely that you automatically focus your perceptions along that specific line. For example, here is a seemingly very innocent core belief. I am a responsible parent. Now on the surface, there is nothing wrong with that belief. If you hold to it and do not examine it, however, you may find that the word responsible is quite loaded and collects other ideas that are equally unexamined by you. What is your idea of being responsible? According to your answer, you can discover whether the core belief works to your advantage or not. If responsible means I must be a parent 24 hours a day to the exclusion of everything else, then you may be in difficulty, for that core belief might prevent you from using other abilities that exist quite apart from your parenthood. You may begin to perceive all physical data through the eyes of that core belief alone. You will not look out upon physical reality with the wonder of a child anymore, or with the unstructured curiosity of an individual, but always through parental eyes. Thus you will close yourself off from much of physical existence or experience, I guess. Now, telepathically, you will also attract unconscious data that fits into this rigid pattern, according to the strength and stubbornness of this idea and whether or not you are willing to deal with it. You may narrow your life still further, all information of any kind finally becoming relatively invisible to you unless it touches upon your parental reality. Now we will take a break. (10:12 to 10:21). Now, the core belief just given is one of a kind, or is of one kind. One of a kind. The core belief just given is of one kind. You hold some basic assumptions that are also core beliefs. To you, they seem to be definitions. They are so a part of you that you take them for granted. Your idea of time is one. You may enjoy manipulating thoughts of time in your mind. You may find yourself thinking that time is basically different from your experience of it. But fundamentally, you believe that you exist in the hours and the years, that the weeks come at you one at a time, that you are caught in the onrush of the seasons. Naturally, your physical experience reinforces this belief. You structure your perception, therefore, in terms of the lapses that seem to happen between events. This in itself forces you to concentrate your attention in one direction only, and discourages you from perceiving the events in your life in other fashions. You may occasionally employ the association of ideas, one thought leading easily to another. When you do this, you often perceive new insights. As the events fall apart from time continuity in your mind, they seem to take on fresh vitality. You You have unstructured them, you see, from the usual organization. As you apprehend them through association, you come quite close to examining the contents of your mind in a free fashion. But if you drop the time concept and then view the conscious content of your mind through other core ideas, you are still structuring. I am not saying that you should never organize those contents. I am saying that you must become aware of your own structures. Build them up or tear them down, but do not allow yourself to become blind to the furniture of your own mind. You can stub your toe as easily on a misplaced idea as you can upon an old chair. It will help you, in fact, if you think of your own beliefs as furniture that can be rearranged, changed, renewed, completely discarded, or replaced. Your ideas are yours. They should not control you. It is up to you to accept those that you choose to accept. Imagine yourself then rearranging this furniture. Images of particular pieces will come clearly to you. Ask yourself what ideas these pieces represent. See how well the tables fit together. Open up the drawers inside. 1035. There will be no mystery. You know what your own beliefs are. You will see the groupings, but it is up to you to look inside your own mind and to use the images in your own way. Throw out ideas that do not suit you. If you read this, find such an idea in yourself and then say, I cannot throw this idea away, then you must realize that your inner remark is in itself a belief. You can indeed throw the idea away, the second one, as easily as the first. So I love that. Like, let's really consider that more closely here. Throw out ideas that do not suit you. If you read this, find such an idea in yourself and then say, I cannot throw this idea away, then you must realize that your inner remark is in itself a belief. You can indeed throw the idea away, and the second one as easily as the first. You are not powerless before ideas. Using this analogy, you will certainly find some furniture that you did not expect. Do not simply look in the center of your inner room of consciousness, and make sure that you are on guard against the certain invisibility that was mentioned earlier in this chapter, where an idea, quite available, appears to be a part of reality instead. The structuring of beliefs is done in a highly characteristic yet individual manner, so you will find patterns that exist between various groupings, and one can lead you to another. The idea of being the responsible parent, for example, may lead quite easily to other psychic structures involving responsibility, so that data is accepted on its own value. You may even think that it is wrong to view any situation except through your parental status. The belief in guilt, therefore, would be a cementing structure that would hold together other similar core beliefs and add to their strength. You must understand that these are not simply dead ideas like debris within your mind. They are psychic matter. In a sense, then, they are alive. They group themselves like cells, protecting their own validity and identity. You feed them, figuratively speaking, with like ideas. When you examine one such belief, then you obviously threaten the integrity of the structure. And so there are ways of inserting new supports, so to speak, methods to tide you over. The whole core belief need not fall down upon you as you examine its basis. Now, I will stop at that for now and take a break. We will be finished with this chapter shortly, and then we will begin the next. To Eleanor and Dick. I would speak faster for you, but we need the notes for the book. 1046. Jane's trance had been good. We were pleased that others had been present during some book dictation. The rest of the session was given over to our guests. Seth's manner became more jovial and his pace speeded up considerably. End at about 12:30 a.m. Some notes added later. Dick Bach felt that he didn't really write Seagull himself. By now, the story of that book's conception is well known. Late one night in 1959, Dick was walking beside a canal near a West Coast beach when he heard a voice say, "Jonathan Livingston Seagull." No one else was around. He was astonished. He was even more so when, on his return home, the voice initiated images that gave him the bulk of the book in three-dimensional form. Then it stopped. On his own, Dick tried unsuccessfully to finish the manuscript. Nothing happened until one day 8 years later, when he suddenly wakened to hear the voice again, and with it came the rest of the book. Who wrote it? Dick didn't claim authorship. He came across the Seth material, saw similarities in Jane's and his experiences, and came here to see if she or Seth could explain the phenomenon. There are points of correlation, of course, only Jane is presented not with just a voice, but with an entire personality, Seth, who then writes books while she is in an altered state of consciousness. So she and Dick were highly interested in what Seth would say. Besides this, Jane's novel, The Education of Oversoul 7, was written under similar, brackets, and yet different, circumstances. She describes the processes involved in her introduction, along with the creation of some of her poetry. Footnote. In this book, there are many examples of various kinds of altered states of consciousness on Jane's part. In addition to Seth's volume, these sometimes resulted in very creative products of her quote-unquote own. Some of the psychic experience connected with her book of poetry, Dialogues of the Soul and Mortal Self and Time, which she began in November 1972, are described in the 639th session in Chapter 10, and in the 653rd session in Chapter 13, we go into those involved with the writing of her long poem, Dialogues of the Speakers, on April 2nd, 1973. End of footnote. To Jane, these states are all aspects of the same kind of highly accelerated creativity that finally, quote, goes beyond itself into levels or aspects of reality that we don't understand clearly yet. The whole question is also relevance in cases involving automatic writing, painting, singing, musical composition, etc. I'm not sure where those quotations end. Looks like another typo or whatever, but yeah, there's a quotation and it doesn't show where it ends, so draw your own conclusions. Now, here are some near verbatim quotes from the information Seth gave Dick Bach and Company on the evening of September 27th, 1972. Information does not exist by itself. Connected with it is the consciousness of all those who understand it, perceive it, or originate it. So there are not records in terms of objective, forever available banks of information into which you tune. Instead, the consciousness that held or will hold the information attracts it like a magnet. The information itself wants to move toward consciousness. It is not dead or inert. It is not something you grab for. It is also something that wants to be grabbed, and so it gravitates to those who seek it. So, for anyone watching this right now, as well as in the future, and receiving this information, know that it's not just you sort of seeking out this information, whether it be out of an intense interest or just curiosity or whatever. The information is literally seeking you, if you accept Seth's thesis, at least. So where were we? Your consciousness attracts the consciousness that is already connected with the material. That is one of my goodies for the evening. So again, your consciousness attracts the consciousness that is already connected with the material. Information then becomes new and is reborn as it is interpreted through a new consciousness, as Seagull was. The inner portion of your being, using those abilities that have always been yours, interpreted the information through the kaleidoscope of your own being, using the best portions of yourself, producing, then, a brilliant truth in new clothes, but in clothes that no one could have given it but yourself. Now I will tell you, if you assign the authorship of Seagull to another, then you deny the uniqueness of your own inner self. The truth came to you and was given to you, but the originality and uniqueness was provided by your own inner being, which may now be so separated from your conscious self that it seems to be apart from it. So other things were also involved, not only the birth of a book, but the emergence of the inner self through art into the physical universe. Now part of the focus and the strength comes from those two births, and the intensity behind them is also the reason why the book's nativity strikes the world as strongly as it does. The two are merged in the book. You are looking for the author of Seagull, and I tell you I am looking at him. He may not have the face that you see when you look in the mirror, simply because you cannot see your true identity in a mirror. But I am looking at all that is visible of the author of Seagull, and you should know him best of all. And I will tell you through the years how to become acquainted with him, in more unspeaking terms. Rupert already has a head start on this, so I'm not spoiling his fun. There are indeed, quote-unquote, aspects of your own consciousness that operate in completely different environments. Environments, for example, that are not physical. There are aspects of you, therefore, that know many other kinds of information than those available to you at the conscious level now. End quote. Note that Seth endorsed Jane's theory of aspects. She's begun a book on the subject. In it, she will explore, among other things, the nature, validity, and sources of such personalities as Seth, and the quote-unquote intrusion of intuitional or revelatory material. Once again, see her introduction. All right, that's the end of that session. We're nearly at the end of the chapter, so I'm gonna. The fuck is my tablet doing, honestly? So I'm gonna make little, I don't know, some preparations, I guess, for the end of the stream. I'm going to list this as chapters 2 through 3, since that's what we have read. Remember, I will be back. I'm enjoying this study immensely, to the point right now that I'm almost thinking, I don't know, maybe I should try to read and analyze these Seth books more often. I don't know yet, though, if I can do it more than once a week, but who knows, we shall see. All right, changing now to chapters 2 through 3. So we're just going to finish this chapter up. Remember, I will, of course, well, I'll save those announcements for here in a moment or two. All right, so let us continue. Session 619, October 9th, 1972, 9:06 p.m., Monday. My mother lives with my brother and his family in a small community in upstate New York near Rochester, and Jane and I had spent the weekend visiting one and all. During our drive back to Elmira this morning, Jane said, "Somebody's working on Seth's book, I can tell you that. I keep getting snatches of it. It's about imagination and beliefs and how they interact, only there's a lot more to it." "Well," she added, pleased, "it's nice to know the work's being done. Now, I bid you good evening. Good evening, Seth. And unless there is something you specifically want me to discuss, we will resume dictation." "No, go ahead." "Give us a moment, then." "Imagination also plays an important part in your subjective life, as it gives mobility to your beliefs. It is one of the motivating agencies that helps transform your beliefs into physical experience. It is vital, therefore, that you understand the interrelationship between ideas and imagination. In order to dislodge unsuitable beliefs and establish new ones, you must learn to use your imagination to move concepts in and out of your mind. The proper use of imagination can then propel ideas in the directions you desire." End of chapter 3. All right, so you heard Seth. That's the end of chapter 3. When we resume with chapter 4, that chapter is entitled Your Imagination and Your Beliefs, and a few words about the origin of your beliefs. So indeed, what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to go feast, and then I'm going to come back and probably read at least one more chapter, I guess. or maybe more. Who knows? We'll see. We'll see what I'm in the mood for. I will remind people, though, as usual, at the end of these streams, that of course I will be back on Wednesday, probably looking at the current astrology and doing some live tarot readings for donations of any amount. And I'll be back on Saturday, as always, with another tarot card analysis stream. We will be looking at the Temperance card, also known as the Art card. And then, of course, back on Monday for more Seth material that we will dive into and analyze even more. But again, I plan to come back after I get something to eat, unless I somehow got like way too tired or something, but 99% chance I'll be back in an hour. So thanks for being here, everyone. Thanks for listening to what I have to say, as well as the Seth material that I'm presenting here. And I do hope to see you next time.